Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our budget meeting 2.5 for January 26. First, I would like to read the land acknowledgement. As we gather today, I would respectfully acknowledge, on behalf of Council and the community, that the City of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we reside. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, I'd like to welcome our treasurer, Ms. Lochte, to welcome our first presenter and talk about the agenda for today.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. So today is an extra day that we added to our budget deliberation schedule, hence the name Day 2.5. So again, both myself, my Deputy Treasurer, Marcia Hawthorne, and our Financial Planning Analyst, Jennifer Belair, will be presenting budget information today. And as always, we're helped by Ashley Perrier, who works in the background coordinating the budget on behalf of the city. So thank you to the team for their contributions. As we know, we have held 2 days of deliberations already on December 10th and December 11th. We are currently sitting at a 10.87% levy increase. We still have a few items left over from the two motions left over from the previous meeting to discuss, as well as going through the water, sewer, and capital budgets. Tonight, we'll be looking to at least go through the budget once. We do have a public budget meeting scheduled for Tuesday, January 14th at 6 p.m., which will be where the budget will be summarized for the public and be an opportunity for the public to ask any questions. And then we'll have a final day, and I do notice I didn't update that slide, of deliberations at the end of January. And as well, we also have our transit RFP award coming up on January 21st for discussion and decision. So lots of activities still to come related to the budget before we finalize that levy increase. So today, we are looking to have deliberations until about 7, take a break, and then resume around 7:15. And our plan is to adjourn no later than 9 tonight. And we'll see how that goes. Again, any formal motions made for any proposed line item budget changes, any proposed line item changes have to be made by formal motion. I was just talking to the clerk a bit, so if there is any, if committee is interested in reconsidering any previous motions, we do have to follow under our current procedural bylaw the reconsideration process, whereby we would have to file a formal notice of motion. So I would suggest that we do that on day 3. So if there's anything that we want to reconsider, that we kind of put that into the day 3 agenda, and we can talk about it here, but we'll do it more formally in the next budget meeting at the end of January. So tonight, before we get back into the city operating budget, we do have with us representatives from both the PBIA and the Pembroke Public Library. So we're going to start with the PBIA, and Bethia Summers is with us tonight to present her budget. So on the original detailed package, the PBIA budget is found on pages 119 to 121. Overall, their levy requirement increased by 1.4%. And the tax rate will increase by 3.83%. So overall, it's a change of $51. And I'm going to let Bethia present her budget. So I don't know. Yeah, here, I'll put the mic over here and have your own little space.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for having me here tonight. So the budget increase this year is a little bit larger than in past years, and the biggest contributor to that is staffing. So in 2025, we will be hiring a part-time staff, and that's what the largest increase has been. The budget was presented at our AGM in November, and there was no objections from our membership as it was presented. We do continue to go on with all the events we had last year and growing them slightly. And just if anyone has any questions about anything that was in the budget or about what we're planning for 2025, I'm happy to answer them.
Keel?
Bethia, if you could remind me, last year, did we not have a slight decrease, partly because we got rid of, well, not got rid of, but we weren't going to have the part-time position for the 2024 year? So does that also sort of explain why it looks like a larger increase than in reality?
Yes, it would. Yeah, and the wages have gone up since then as well, and all the fees associated with hiring someone else have all gone up. So there is certain kind of inflation worked into just different lines of the budget as well.
So if we overlook 2024, it actually is a somewhat negligible increase from 2023 to 2025.
Yes, that would be a correct way of looking at it.
Any other questions for Bethia? The Councillor Keel?
I move that committee accepts the Pembroke Business Improvement Area's 2025 budget as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Frenier. Discussion? Those in favor? Carried.
Thank you for your time, and thanks for partnering on, so many departments I worked with this year to partner on different events and initiatives, and it's just been really great working with staff and council, so thank you.
Oh, Councillor Frenier?
Through the chair, I think we need to thank you because you do bring a lot of energy. There's a great team that you work with, and it just seems to be, it's contagious. So what you bring downtown, other people are getting involved and making things happen. So thank you, Bethia.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I just want to comment, Bethia, could you just give us a quick update on the Shamrock Park?
Yep, so things are just waiting. A few things have been delayed, but pretty much everything has been installed. So we have a few more pieces of furniture to be dropped off. We're just waiting for them to be delivered, but we have hydro there now. We have some great shade structures and electricity to those shade structures. So we'll have great lighting, an opportunity for our performers to plug in so we can have live music more often and just really animate the space really well.
Yeah, that looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So next up, we have the 2025 Pembroke Public Library budget. So joining us tonight is both Karthi Rajmani as well as the chair of the board. Overall, the library budget can be found on pages 113 to 16 of the detailed package. They are requesting an increase compared to previous year. Breaking down that increase, it's in part due to the pay equity market and COLA changes to the library's salary budget, as well as a decrease in the TLV contribution expected from the city versus the actual negotiated agreement with TLV for 2025. And with that, I will pass the microphone over to the library. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
So we have Justin Jeffrey.
Yes, good afternoon, councillors. My name is Justin Jeffrey. I'm the vice chair of the library board. Deputy Mayor Abdallah is actually the chair. First, I wanted to thank you all for appointing me to sit on the Pembroke Public Library Board. This is my second term, and it has been and continues to be a rewarding way to give back to the community and has provided me with excellent governance and leadership experience, which has helped me in my career. As a precursor to our budget presentation, I'm going to provide you with some of the highlights of the work Karthi and the team have accomplished over the past year to demonstrate the return on investment that the ratepayers are receiving through the city's funding of the library. In the past year, the library has reached a memorandum of understanding with Algonquin College. This MOU enables students at the college to access and borrow library resources and minimizes the risk of lost or damaged materials to the library through the ability of having the college collect fees and fines on our behalf. In the past year, the library was the recipient of the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sport Innovation Award for the Multilicious program, which engaged downtown restaurants and local food vendors in the lead up to the Multicultural Festival. And the library also received the Champion of Diversity Award from the Ontario government. To highlight the Multicultural Festival, this year's event had more than 5,000 participants. This is an event which highlights the diversity of our community, draws in visitors from other communities, and creates economic spin-offs for local restaurants, hotels, and other businesses in our community. In terms of a return on investment, the estimated market value of services that the library provided in 2024 is almost $3.7 million, which means that for every dollar that the ratepayers of Pembroke and Laurentian Valley contribute to the library's operational budget, the community is receiving almost $5 of services in return. As you are making budget decisions today, I just want to remind the committee of some of the important work that the library does for the community on an ongoing basis. The library performs outreach to folks in our community that are not readily able to leave their houses through the delivery of library materials. The library in the winter is a warm place for those who need it, and in the summer, a cool place for those who need shelter from the heat. The library is often one of the first places newcomers visit in our community, and our team helps connect them to resources. The library is one of the few places where folks in our community can access educational materials and recreational program at no cost. Looking to the future, the library is currently nominated for the Angus Mowat Award of Excellence for the Around the World in 90 Days Reading Challenge, which was in the lead up to last year's Multicultural Festival. And we are pleased to let you know that Karthi Rajamani will be the recipient of the Librarian of the Year Award from the Ontario Library Board Association. I do want to highlight that our library competes for these awards with libraries across the province, many of which have budgets of tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, which I think makes the fact that our smaller library is the recipient of so many awards all the more impressive. Before I hand it over to Karthi for a detailed breakdown of the budget, I will highlight that when preparing this budget, we were mindful of the impact to ratepayers. The requested increases are mainly driven by staffing costs across three categories. As the treasurer mentioned, we performed pay equity maintenance this year, which as an employer with historically female job classes, we are legislated to undertake and maintain this process to ensure that we are eliminating gender-based pay differences. To do this, we use the same job evaluation tool used by the City of Pembroke and use the City of Pembroke's job classes as comparators. Secondly, the changing demographics in our downtown area has meant that the library has had to pay more attention to staffing levels to ensure that both staff and patron safety is maintained. We also, in the past year, have had a visit from the Ministry of Labor in regards to this. And one of the other drivers of increased costs are the ability of participation of part-time and temporary staff in the OMERS pension plan. Thank you for your consideration of our proposed budget. I'll now hand it over to Karthi for a detailed breakdown.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to come and present the library budget. As the board vice chair was mentioning, there is an increase in the budget due to the market value pay equity adjustment and COLA of 3.25%. And as you see in the budget presented in from the line 8 to 19 is the full-time employees pay, and from line 32 to 37 is the part-time employees, and the increase only happened in these two sections. The provision of service, we increased only $1,900, which is insurance cost is increased, and then programming $500 we increased in programming budget. Other than that, we cut $5,000 in library material budget, And this year is going to be the 10th annual Multicultural Festival. Then for that, we are requesting $5,000 more than last year. That is $15,000 we are requesting. Because of the value of this festival is we can't even express how much it is valued in the community and beyond. The festival reaches the whole Ontario. People from all over Ontario visits for this festival, and also the tourists from different parts of the different provinces are visiting. And last year we had a little survey, and through that we came to know people from New Brunswick and Vancouver and all over Quebec. From everywhere people came for the festival. Not they are coming for this festival only. They came as a tourist, and this was the highlight for them to come to Pembroke. And so recognizing the value of the festival, we increased $5,000 in this year budget. And other than that, in the non-recurring, as usual, we are requesting $14,000. So if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer. All the increase is due to the staffing. It's not staffing, pay equity and the COLA increase.
Okay, Councillor, thank you, Karthi.
Thank you.
Councillor Frenier, then Councillor Giacono.
So there's no doubt around the work that's being done in our library. I mean, we all know, I mean, you continue to receive accolades on your work and your community contributions. But when I look at this, it really bothers me that our partners are not coming to the table. They've reduced your budget request by over 35%. And we're expected to just pick it up. So, like, I can't. I mean, we're looking at a 25% increase in what we contribute, which is unfair to us. And I understand the work you're doing. It's just that that's unrealistic. We just can't say, sure. I mean, either we have to look at, I know there's a partnership, but do we have to give them a resident fee on top of it to make up for the lack of contribution? Like, you know, this is not a fair agreement.
Yeah.
So their residents are using our library and they should pay fair share. I mean, that's my opinion. And I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. You know, I mean, we contribute to the Multicultural Festival, 10,000 last year, and I know that you had spoke to me about that, increasing it. And there's no doubt, I mean, it's warranted, but after seeing that our neighbors are going to try to put 88,000 extra on our bill, I don't know. And I want to hear the comments around the table too. Like, that's a large increase for us to try to just swallow. It's actually, I'm looking at, yeah, it's a 25% increase. I know, like, I can't support this. I think it needs to go back, Laurentian Valley. Like, if I could ask a question through the chair, did you present the budget to Laurentian Valley Council before they approved their budget?
No, this is not by usage. They wanted to go by flat rate. The negotiation was done last year for 4 years. It's not by usage.
So, just to jump in, Laurentian Valley is a purchaser of service of the library, so they are paying a rate. And I definitely understand where you're coming from, Councillor Lafreniere, but Laurentian Valley, when we negotiate, uses the library as a wedge item of several negotiations that happen between Pembroke and Laurentian Valley. I know we are not the only one who maybe Laurentian Valley is not contributing an equal share.
I am confused, and I don't think I'm the only one. I'm just the first one to say it. I thought we always had a cost-sharing agreement with them. I know they don't pay anything for capital. I know that. They pay a small amount for capital for recreation. But it's always been a bone of contention with me and with other councillors that they don't pay capital at the library. Mm-hmm. So where did you get the number 250,000 that you budgeted in their budget?
Okay, I can answer for this. And So before 2018, the contract was by usage. How many patrons used the library, how many times they used, based on that, the contract was negotiated. Then from 2018, they didn't want to go by usage, they went by flat rate. So that was continued last year. Before negotiation, we presented with the usage dollar value, but they negotiated with the flat rate. Which we were not happy, but that's what it came up with.
Okay, through the chair, thank you for that. I'm still not happy with it. I can't approve this increase. I mean, it seems we always get the short end of the stick when it comes to negotiations, and I know that many moons ago, and Councillor Giacono will recall, we had to sort of push them a little more and say, okay, maybe it'd be just user fees from now on. Like, if we're not getting what we should from other individuals that are using, and our costs keep going up, well, maybe we need to just, there has to be an out clause. Like, I'm just saying, how much can you be pushed? You know, we've made a lot of headway with our neighbors when it comes to, you know, like the pool and things like that, but it's like giving with one hand and the other hand, not looking that the other hand's taking it. So it's like, yeah, we appreciate where they've come to the table, but they can't keep taking with the other hand. So, and I know I may get a call about this, but that's just the way I feel. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul.
CEO and then Councillor Giacono.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to comment. So, and I think as Karthi mentioned, that was a 4-year agreement that has been negotiated between the City of Pembroke, Laurentian Valley, and the library. So I don't think it's anything that could be discussed anything further right now. That was something that was negotiated between the three agencies. So I think if you're unhappy with the clauses within the agreement, I think you have to go back to the people that negotiated the agreement. And it's not the library and it's not the Laurentian Valley.
Through the chair, I no offense, I hope was taken. I'm just like,
No,
you know, we don't sit in on all these negotiations. We have representation, but I still can't support a 25% increase.
Councillor Giacono and then Mayor Gervais and then Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Karthi and Justin, for coming. We're all under a lot of pressure. I mean, we understand your role, you know, trying to crunch numbers, our treasurer's role, the CAO, all of us sitting around the table. I mean, it is not pleasant when we, you know, tentatively want to give whatever the ask is, but that's not reality. The flat rate versus the usage, I think, you know, I mean, I'm not a statistician, but if you're looking, you know, if somebody is looking to get a better deal and they say, jeepers, you know, if we looked at our usage, we really got to pay a lot, so let's go to a flat rate. That'd be better for us. Now, I don't know if that's how that came about, but as was said, you know, this is agreed upon for a specific amount of time to be revisited, so we're not trapped, but we're, you know, we have to honor the agreement that has been put in place. The other thing I have to say is the $5,000 request for the multicultural activity. I attended a number of the days you had. I met a number of the folks, as did many members of council. Quite impressed and by the numbers of people that come and by comments about how this festival makes our community a better place. I heard that. Making it a better place is still a little tough to choke up $5,000 for the request, but is there any way that there may be other agencies, you know, that would, sponsorships, I know you do have sponsorships that would support this to the tune of $5,000, and I mean, you know, I was in sales all my life, I know, sometimes you have to knock on a lot of doors, but if you don't knock, you don't get, and I'm sure that there may be somebody out there, and I'm positive there's somebody out there that would say, you know what, this is such a wonderful event that our company or, you know, maybe a personal individual would contribute to that amount. So I don't know if you've given that any thought through the board. May sound a little far-fetched, but If you don't knock on the door, you'd be amazed that people will say, nobody asked me. I would have been pleased to. So, saying that, I'm going to give you a few names later. I'll call you, and it's worth a try. All they can say is there's two answers, yes or no. So I'd sooner hear the yes. And I think there's somebody out there would pick up that $5,000 of your request to make the festival even better. Thank you.
Gervais?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just want to thank the two of you for bringing forward the budget, because as we all know, it takes considerable time and effort to come up with a budget and try and bring forward something for our consideration. Just to circle back in terms of whose authority it is to do what. So the library is governed underneath the Public Libraries Act. It's its own entity. We have no control over it, although there's now two representatives, being the deputy mayor and myself, sitting on it. So it negotiates with, in this particular case, Laurentian Valley. And yes, underneath the two contracts ago, far better arrangement, in my opinion. Yes, it required a lot of time on Carthy's behalf to monitor, to calculate, to understand who was using what service and so forth, what municipality are they coming from. But it's no different than our pool and other items, is to try and figure out where are the people coming from. But in terms of negotiating, it's really, at the conclusion of that contract, really the library board to negotiate with Laurentian Valley. And it just seems to keep circling back. I know when we did the water sewer agreement, and I don't know, looking at Mr. Lewis, how many hours was spent at that, and also involving a mediator to get to a conclusion, to get full cost recovery. And that's what it took, is everyone should be paying their fair share. So that's the, where it comes down to, and a much more easier resolution would simply be to have some situation between the two municipalities where we're one. But in any event, for today's purposes, though, yes, the contract with Laurentian Valley doesn't reap the amount of money that is required to run that facility. Is great that it is, because you heard all the different awards and so forth. But that's where we're at, and that's the difficulty. And so, really, what our council can do, as it's done in the past, is to say this is the allotment of X number of dollars, and then the CEO and the library board has to figure out how to make that work. So, thank you.
Councillor Keel?
For those at home, they missed out. Look, this is a tough one, Carthy and Mr. Vice Chair. I'm with Councillor Lafreniere that I don't foresee me approving a 25% increase. I'm perhaps who sits on the library board? I mean, in total, who? So we send two members of council and a Pembroke representative. Two
So
Pembroke
there's
representatives.
There's two Pembroke councillors, which is Mayor Gervais, Deputy Mayor Abdallah. There's myself, Bethia Summers,
Bethia Summers.
and Renelle Sharon, who are community members from Pembroke.
From Pembroke.
And
Who?
then Laurentian Valley sends a councillor and a community member.
So we send 5 and they send 2. Okay, so I'm going to disagree a little bit with the mayor. He and I have disagreed before over who controls the police services board. He's taking the position that the board controls themselves. I'm going to remind everybody that we appoint a majority of the board. So I'm not going to accept that, frankly, the city of Pembroke doesn't have a controlling interest in the library. I think it would have been helpful if during the discussions that some of these matters maybe came back before our council. That's not necessarily on you, Carthy, you're the staff member. But as I said a moment ago, I mean, right now, I think, Madam Treasurer, we're still sitting over 10% tax increase. So, the idea that that I'm going to agree to a 25% increase is just not happening. I mean, the Pembroke taxpayers aren't an ATM. And if LV isn't paying their fair share, then, you know, screw politeness. You know, we're always going to have some tough discussions with them overall. I mean, all we do is end up paying and paying and paying. And, you know, I'm not about to say anything that we don't know. We know that they could always just say, well, never mind, we're going to pull out completely, and now you're on the hook for the whole thing. I know that. Councillor Jacquinot knows that. Councillor Lafreniere knows that. They've been here for a while. But, you know, the idea that someone's just going to walk in this room and stick us with the bill then is just not going to happen. So, I mean, I'm certainly not going to move a motion to accept the budget the way that it is. I will go on, since it was brought up, the Multicultural Festival. Carthy, I told you, I think 2 years ago, to come ask us for more money, because I do see value in it. I see economic value in it. I don't, you know, you've been stuck at $10,000 for a few years now, while this thing has been growing year over year. I mean, immensely, like sizable growth year over year. So do I believe that extra $5,000 is needed? You and I, while standing in the middle of the festival, talked about that last year, and I agree that it is needed. So I don't necessarily want to pull from your multicultural festival budget either. I think $15,000 for that, for an entire weekend, and it's probably more than a weekend. People probably come earlier and stay later. I know some of the hotels, I think, were at near capacity, if not at capacity. So I do wonder if there's other ways for us to look at this. I know, you know, I know we're going to be getting some MAT tax this year, and part of that, Councillor Lafreniere, I think goes through the OVTA. I know they've agreed that money will be used for Pembroke purposes. I don't know have we come up with, I don't know who to look at for this one. Have we come up with how they are using it for Pembroke purposes? Like, are they going to have a grant program, or, are, like, can I stop and I'd like to hear the answer.
So it hasn't formally been passed by council, but there are certain criteria that the dollars from the MAT tax have to be promoting tourism or tourism-related things, like recreation could be covered because it attracts people into our community. Some of these events, so at the Tourism Culture Committee that the mayor also sits on with me, we've discussed it because as a tourism committee, we would like to come up with the template, and perhaps organizations would apply for a portion of the MAT tax to support some of the attractions that are happening, the Multicultural Festival and other events. So we're talking about it. So it has to come through council for approval, but that's what they're thinking about for the MAT tax. There would be a grant application, there would be a deadline every year, so a certain amount would be to support tourism activities in our community. Like I said, it hasn't been finalized yet, though.
Now, is that for our half, though, or the OVTA half?
No, that's our half.
So-
OVTA would be used to promote the Pembroke as a whole. So, yeah.
So
they would do
I'm
it.
wondering if their half would have any possible.
They may, and I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I do think the Multicultural Festival, like the Busker Festival, like the Fiddling and Step Dance, I mean, we're naming some things that are frankly economically very advantageous for the city of Pembroke. I guess my last question to you, Carthy, is, you know, if we didn't want to foot the bill for the Laurentian Valley's $88,025, is that even a number that you can go back and find? Like, that's a pretty, I mean, I guess I'll throw it back to you. Is that a number that we can find somewhere?
So all this increase is due to the market value pay adjustment and the COLA. It's not this provision of service increase.
But like the increase you're asking for, I think is about 178,000. So 90,000 of that, I guess, is from the COLA stuff.
Yeah. So
Is elsewhere, is there places that we can find $88,000?
So if we get the 93,000, which was increase of market value and COLA, with plus last year whatever we got approved, we'll be okay with that.
Madam Treasurer, can I ask what that would save us?
So last year, can I answer that? Last year was 570,000, and plus this 93,000, if we get it, will be okay to manage.
Okay,
Then
just-
I also wanted to mention that multicultural festival budget is separate from library's operational budget. That is totally different from the operational. That 15,000 I'm requesting apart from the library operating budget. Every year, city was giving us 10,000. This year, in that festival budget, I'm asking extra 5,000 because it is going to be 10th annual festival. We wanted to do it in a grand way, attract more tourists. That's why I'm asking 5,000 more.
Okay.
And we are also applying for the ministry grant, and we are looking for more sponsorship as well for that.
Okay, I'm definitely talking about the library operational budget.
Okay.
I personally will seek to keep the 5,000 extra for the multicultural festival, and I would pledge to you again that for a third year, I'll sponsor as well. And like Councillor Giacono said, maybe I can find some of my business friends or whatnot and knock on some doors as well. But now I think this is your meeting, but I think the treasurer was going to jump in.
yeah, I have a question also and a comment. Did you want to go first?
So if we contributed 576,769 plus the pay equity of 92,748, that would be a contribution of 669,517, or a decrease to the 2025 proposal of $80,925. So the 92,748 is the COLA, like it's the salary increases.
The salary increase, yeah.
Thank you. So I just have a comment and a question for Justin. And Justin, for those that aren't aware, you graciously volunteered, along with Councillor Purcell, to do the pay equity for Carthy and the staff. And we hadn't done pay equity in a number of years, I think over 5 years. And you have vast experience in that, and we thank you for that. Pay equity, can you comment on it, that it's a legal commitment on behalf of the library board and other corporations?
Yeah, so it's a legislated requirement for all employers with historically female-dominated job classes, of which a library is one. So we are legislatively obligated to perform pay equity and maintain pay equity to ensure that we're helping eliminate gender-based pay discrimination.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, Councillor Giacono, then Councillor Frainie, then we'll
Thank you,
have
Mr.
a
Chair.
motion probably.
If the pay equity, and we know it's legislated, you can't get around it. And I mean, it's also fair, that people are paid the same amount of money. In the OMP program, I don't know what they call it now, OMP or OOMP or Kaboomba, what is the one that we get from the Ontario Municipal Fund where they give us a lot of grants for? Do they compensate us in any way for any of these pay equity costs? None. So we go to the taxpayer, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Frainie?
So I am going to suggest that we ask the library through the chair to remove $86,000 from the budget, this budget. And that will still give them the 92,748 for the COLA increases as were explained. But it would reduce that impact. It would go from 178 to about half. So it would reduce it to about 12.5% increase.
So you're making a motion?
I
with
would
the-
move that the library board revisit the budget and remove $86,000 from the presented 2025 budget. So.
Well, you could, Mayor Gervais.
I'm just, in the past, the library board sets its own budget. We don't control that they want to spend money on line 110, money on line 42.
Okay,
What we
well, let
do
me figure
control
it
is
out.
the line that says, City of Pembroke local. We do control that, and you can make
Okay.
a motion to reduce that to whatever amount, and
Yep.
then they have to jiggle it wherever they want
Okay,
to jiggle it.
I'll reword it.
The treasurer had an amount.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's about 92,000.
So it was $80,925 cut.
So the total with the COLA increase in pay equity is 669,517.
Correct.
Is that the amount you want in your motion, Councillor Frenier?
Through the chair, the amount I want in the motion is how much are we willing to contribute to this budget? And is that what the treasurer just gave me, the number?
So that was based on what the library said they could reasonably accommodate.
Right, so we need to remove 86. I'm just doing a bit of math. So I believe I would put forward a motion that we increase our allotment to the library to $92,000 for this year,
92,748.
from 178,673.
So is it 92,748 increase?
So right now it's 178. Let me just, I see the treasurer, 178,673.
So that's the increase year over year. So last year, in terms of the operating contribution, we contributed $576,769.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
But I'm totaling all of the columns to
Right.
give the bottom line, which is almost the same thing. It's an
which-
increase.
Yeah, it just includes the multicultural festival.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay? So we're going to give them an extra $92,000 this year. Even.
Okay, seconder for that motion. Councillor Giacono. Discussion. Councillor Giacono, then Councillor Keel.
I would presume that somewhere out there's a $5,000 check waiting to come to the library to support the not for me personally. I'm going to be quite adamant about that. But I truly believe, with a couple of phone calls, that amount will not be required, and that could be reduced from the budget. I'm speculating. Thank you.
Councillor Keel. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to increase the library budget by $92,000 from last year. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Carthy and Justin.
Thank you.
Yes?
So just a point of clarification, just because it is different contribution lines, are we keeping our multicultural festival? Like in that 92,000, is there a 5,000 increase? Or,
Councillor Frenier?
I'll just clarify it. That's up to Carthy. That is what we're giving her. If she wants to take 5,000 out of that and top up the multicultural, this is the amount we're giving the library to work with for the year. So it's going to depend. That's how I'm looking at this. So I think she can work with those numbers, and I'm seeing some nodding. So it's not up to us to dictate, this is the amount of money. They can use it for what they feel is the most important.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for coming and for the excellent work. CAO,
I guess, I don't know, maybe talking to the treasurer on it, I guess just in regards to how we show this, how do we show this in regards to the budget? You know, there is a contribution that we provide under line 47 to the library, and then also we provide money through the multicultural. So is Councillor Lafreniere saying that we're not providing any additional funds to the multicultural, and we're just doing it under line 47? I just need that clarification.
So through the chair, are you saying we needed 1, 2, 3, 4 different motions for this? So because the budget is broken in 4 components, did we need a motion for each line? Because I see that Carthy's got her hand up, so maybe we can ask her to respond.
go ahead, Carthy.
Thank you. So multicultural festival budget is separate than the operating budget. We are asking 92,000 more in the operating budget. and then non-recurring, 14,000 is for building maintenance, that is separate.
So now you're at 92 plus 5.
Right.
I'm not supporting that. It would be 92 for operating, rent, and capital combined. Like, yeah, like, I mean, unless we're doing it in four motions, I'm looking at the total, page 9, 178.63, and that was what I based that 92,000 on. So, no, 92,000 would be for a Pembroke operating, Pembroke rent, Pembroke capital, without the 5,000 for multicultural, if that's the way.
Okay,
So, can I?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just wanted to clarify, on 114, page 114, operating budget, city council is approving 92,000. Am I understanding right?
That's
Then-
correct. $92,000 more, that's correct.
So the, page number 108, line 126, capital contribution 14,000. There is no increase, that is, we are going to get that approved. And the other one is page number 108, 152 line, multicultural festival, $10,000. The council is approving that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, unless somebody makes a motion to cut it.
92 is for everything. So like, this shouldn't be this confusing.
Yeah, that's why I think it would have been easier if it was line by line.
Line by
It's been line
Yeah.
by line, and so I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
it should have came to us line by line. So if we start to break it down, the real variance here, wow, yeah, so the variance is on only one line. And that's page 14, 114, line 47.
That is
Okay.
what, sorry.
So
that-
this would apply to that only. I mean, let's just start again. So I would move that we approve the Pembroke operating contribution reduced by the amount I said, that one line. And now, if you want to go ahead, we can take other motions for the rent contribution, the capital contribution, but I will not support the contribution of 5,000 towards the festival.
So do we have motion for the line 126, Pembroke capital contribution? That's already in the budget.
Yeah, but I think we have an issue now is that we have a motion that's already been approved.
Right. For the operating contribution.
Well, the motion was for the complete amount. So,
Can that motion be withdrawn, Mr. Chair, for further discussion?
now that it's approved, it can't be withdrawn.
Okay,
I seek the unanimous consent of council to suspend the procedural rules and withdraw the last motion.
do we have consent? Those in favor? Okay. Okay, we'll go over this line by line. Line 47, Pembroke operating contribution. Yes,
I would move that we reduce line 47 on page 114, the Pembroke operating contribution from 173,673 down to 92,000 increase.
okay, do we have seconder? Seconder, Counselor Giacono. Discussion. Okay, those in favor? Carried.
Okay, again,
Yeah,
I would move that we approve line 45, Pembroke rent contribution to be the same as 2024, $115,308.
okay, do we have a seconder?
Pardon? Oh, okay, as is. So the only change, sorry, we're getting tired already, and we've only been here, what, for
Yeah.
35 minutes? I would move that we remove the extra $5,000 variance from line 152 for the Multicultural Festival.
Do we have a seconder? Counselor Giacono? Discussion? Counselor Giacono?
I'm seconding with the aspect that the $5,000 will come to the library board through a different source other than us.
Any other speakers? Councillor Frenier?
Just for the interest of counselors that weren't here at the beginning of the conversation, we're trying to reduce this from a 25% increase to about a 12% increase. And that would include removing that additional $5,000 that has been requested. They would still receive $10,000 from the city to support the festival. So just information.
Okay, so motion to cut the $5,000 increase, but leave it at 10 for the Multicultural Festival. Those in favor? Those opposed? So the motion, tie vote, motion is defeated. So the 5,000 stays. The motion, it was a tie vote, and the motion was to cut it 5,000, and the motion tie vote, so tie vote is defeated. So it stays. So we're contributing 5,000 more to the Multicultural Festival.
So I won't have to make any phone calls tomorrow, thank you.
So, yes, Councillor Keel.
An extra 5,000.
Councillor Keel?
Another 5,000 will be
Okay,
good.
before we move on, Councillor Keel wants to speak.
Madam Treasurer, could you just remind me of what cut to the overall budget we just did?
So it's roughly 0.32% levy increase, 81,673.
Thank you. Thank you, Carthy and Justin, for coming
Thank you
and for all
very
the
much.
great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Item number 6, I'll hand it over to the treasurer again, review of city operating budget.
Okay, so just to reiterate, after 2 days of deliberations, we were at 10.87% levy increase after growth, with a 1% levy increase totaling $250,217. So we have updated the next couple slides for the revised budget, but we're still working off the original package just for simplicity. At the last couple of meetings, there were 2 outstanding motions that were tabled. So the first motion was related to the deputy fire chief, and the motion that was tabled was at committee. Sorry, I didn't maybe word this really great. That the deputy chief position in the amount of $124,990 be removed from the administration section within the 2025 fire budget. So other than ignoring that committee word, was the motion that was tabled, and the questions around the table were kind of revolving around, could an emergency management position at the salary sort of replace the deputy chief position and be a slightly lower salary level. So the chief did look into emergency management salaries across Ontario, and they do have quite a range to them, anywhere from $111,000 to $175,000, depending on the duties. The salary that was budgeted for the deputy chief position for a full year before benefits is estimated at $144,762. And that is the approach recommended by staff to meet both the fire department and the role of emergency management, as it would have the legislative authority that's needed for decision-making at the different levels of government and provide more flexibility and support to the city's fire services. Amongst staff, the deputy clerk position was cut from the budget in the first 2 days of deliberations. An alternative to that could be a strategic assistant with an estimated annual salary of in the $70,000 range. And that position could dedicate 1 day a week to emergency management, which would help the fire department. And that balance of time in that position could be split between different strategic initiatives that aren't necessarily, like, staff don't have enough time to address, as well as support the clerk's office as well. But we still maintain that the best support for the city is at the deputy clerk level. Again, to have the sufficient knowledge and abilities to be able to support the city. So I was going to pass the mic over for a second to both the chief and the CAO to comment further on this. So I'll start with you, Chief Sell.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. I really don't have any additional information to provide that the treasurer hasn't already spoken to. I think we've discussed it at length over the previous days during the previous meetings. I really don't know, as far as a full-time staff member dedicated specifically to emergency management. I don't know if that is the best use of our resources. So I will just leave it at that.
Okay, so just to give me a little bit of leeway here. So my vision going forward is that we do things a lot differently here at the City of Pembroke and other municipalities. I have a vision that we're, have stronger partnerships. I have a vision that we have different revenue sources. So that's why the idea of the strategic assistance or, the deputy clerk role in regards to promoting lean within the organization. I think it's Albert Einstein that said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I think that's what we do every year, is that we look at this budget and services increase, prices for everything increases, but we're asked to carry the same service but reduce the dollar to do that, which doesn't make sense. So one has to give. It's either that we have to increase taxes or we have to reduce services, or we could do things differently. So that's what I'm promoting here is that idea of looking at things a little differently. And this position would allow us that leeway. Talking to other municipalities, the municipality of Clarington, they introduced it probably, like 4 years ago. And once they started the role, it it paid for itself plus to the extent now that they've got hiring 2 full-time positions strictly just to deal with lean management and finding efficiencies. So there is a Ontario lean community of practice that's set up. So there's lots of municipalities in the GTA that have gone to lean. In regards to Eastern Ontario, I think it's the County of Frontenac that has, and have seen great results. So I'm just asking council to come along with my vision and see a different future rather than having us to deal with this in 2026. I see, I see the clerk working closely with other municipalities on the elections, and through that process, coming up with new and innovative ways of doing the process that's going to save money. I see frontline staff getting together around a lean huddle board and coming up with new ideas, and that not only serve the public better, but also save us money. So that's what I see in the future.
Treasurer, and then Councillor Keel.
Okay, so just to look at the different impacts as a reminder. So the deputy fire chief, the full year impact is a 0.75% increase. In the draft budget, a May start was proposed. If, we were to push that start till October, obviously the levy increase would drop and more of it would be pushed into the following year, 26. Looking at the comparisons with the deputy clerk, the full year impact is noted there. An April start with a deputy clerk, we were looking at 83,375. If we had an April start with an assistant role, it's estimated at 72,300, including benefits.
Mr. Keel?
Okay. Try not to get myself into too much trouble. First of all, I love the idea of doing things differently, and I know some people around this table and at City Hall have not generally liked my attitude to do things significantly differently. But the reality is 2 years ago, after meeting with the treasurer, I asked her at this table, are these 2% increases that have been done, are we hanging ourselves? And I hope you all recall that the treasurer said yes. She agreed with that statement, which I wasn't sure that she would. We didn't pre-plan that one. The reality is, when Stats Canada is telling everybody that it's 2.5 and 3.1, that's for stuff that we're buying at home. That's for us buying a new laptop and paying gas for our car. The other thing the treasurer agreed with me was that municipalities have never had 2% inflation rates. So for years, we were sort of subsidizing municipal inflation with lower tax rates to try and keep it off the backs of the taxpayers. While at the same time, for years, and I know I always use it, but to me it's one of the best examples that we have, is it took more than 24 years to increase skating at the PMC from $2. Now I'm honestly not trying to criticize counselors. Trust me, I just heard over Christmas, because word's getting around. I mean, the public's known since December 14th or something that we were looking at a 10% budget. So trust me, I just spent the last 2 weeks hearing about it. And I think we have to make some tough decisions, but not necessarily just about whether we agree to increase this or not. I think we do, in fact, have to look at, big changes. And, that's why, for instance, with the parking, you heard from me at the last meeting say that I think we should just get rid of some meters that are, inefficiently out in the middle of nowhere, and that maybe if the PBIA, if downtown businesses are the ones that wants parking, then maybe they should be the ones that runs parking, because we have, for I think a couple decades, have had a parking system that runs a deficit. So why are we doing that? So the simple answer would be, well, let's try and make some changes. A bigger answer is, let's just get rid of it. And if the PBI wants it, they can have it. If they don't want it, then maybe we need to look at whether we do parking enforcement at a loss, and not a small loss, a loss of tens of thousands of dollars every year. So when the CAO, is coming up with some of these ideas, I don't believe that he's just pulling them out of thin air. He's rethinking, our entire strategy of how to do things. The only thing that worries me on this one is hearing from the fire chief that he needs support. He's also in charge of emergency management, and I know I said this at the last meeting. Councillor Plummer wasn't here, and I know he's our emergency management committee chair. But I mean, if we ever actually have an emergency, which sincerely I hope this city never does, governments have fallen over mismanagement of emergency situations because it has caused death and destruction. And they have pointed specifically at underfunding and things like that as the reason as to why an emergency got so bad as it did. We can look at Katrina. The Americans have hurricanes all the time, but that one was a matter of being completely unprepared for what they entered into. So I worry, you know, if we're nitpicking and shaving money here and there, and we're doing it off the back of fire and emergency preparedness, I mean, that one does concern me. So I mean, we have a proposal here that, I don't know, I guess I'd like to hear your honest opinion, CAO, because it seems to me that we're kind of on a fence. We're saying, well, here's an option, but I think I'm hearing that staff don't necessarily like that option. They'd prefer to just get the two new staff people. But I mean, if we were going to go down this new road that's being proposed here, with the strategic assistant, and I like that idea. Because I will say, if you haven't noticed that our CAO over the last couple of years has been dealing with some stuff that's truly not at his level. I mean, whether it's things dealing with the warming center and other things that I don't think our CAO should have been spending time on. I'm not saying he shouldn't have been in the loop, but he probably have been spending the hours that he did when he could have been doing other more important work that might have been helping us increase revenues and change city structure. I mean, if we went with this strategic assistant, is that just something that staff have presented to us to try and get something, or do we actually think that could work and do something, I guess is my bottom line question. Or, not that I think you would just placate us, but I mean, truly, like if we're going to hire a strategic assistant and, you know, one day on emergency management isn't going to help the chief, and, you know, a couple days with the clerk and a couple days with you isn't really going to do that much difference. I mean, to me, that's a wasted position. So is this something that we honestly believe could help if we're not willing to take the full step for the two new positions that I know staff would have preferred?
CEO.
So now you're putting me in a difficult position. Ideally, and I think we said that right at the beginning, you know, did we want to come, you know, to the table with 7 new positions? Absolutely not. I'm very fortunate to have like the strong team that I do have. But you know, we've done the 2% for a long time. And so now we're at the point where, yeah, like, you know, we are a regional center. We are a single tier within the within the Renfrew County. We are been like lean in regards to staffing way too long. So yeah, like if you're asking my honest opinion, yes, we do need the 2 positions. Is the other solution like a stopgap to placate council? Yes, it is, just so that we can get something. Because again, like, you know, that's my vision in regards to doing things differently. You know, I've raised it up through AMO, I've raised it up through AMCTO, that we should have like a think tank in regards to thinking of things differently. I'll be bringing something forward in the next couple of weeks to kind of radically change things. I really think we have to change how we deal with stuff, but it requires the resources to get there.
Okay, quick follow-up, because you used over 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Probably used over 10.
Yeah, probably.
Would the something be better than nothing? And could this position, because if we hire, I mean, you know, talking HR stuff, and now if we create this position, can we create it in a way that it could transition into, can't transition to a deputy chief, but is it something that could transition into your deputy clerk position in a future budget year? If it truly is a stopgap, as you're saying. Because, like, I don't want you to come back, well, that sounded rather harsh. I would prefer that staff didn't come back next year and say, well, we still need these 2 people. Could this position, in theory, be amended into the deputy clerk position?
Yeah, certainly, it could be mended into the deputy clerk. You know, my vision is that maybe we have like 2 more people that I'm asking for in the future under lean management, because we're finding how much of savings. These positions aren't created specifically in regards to lean to cost money. They're saving money at the end of the day. So yeah, definitely this would be something that would transition into something else, and that we wouldn't be coming back to the table and say, yes, I need a deputy clerk plus this other position. You know, and that's me talking right now. You know, things could change in regards to legislative requirements and things like that. But as of right now, it'd be something that could transition.
Just for point of information, CEO Unruh, can you explain the breakdown of if it was approved, the strategic assistant, you were discussing 1 day at the fire doing emergency management, 2 days during lean, or 2 days assisting the clerk. Can you just reiterate that?
Yeah, I think you just did.
Yeah, okay.
So it's
Well-
it's a 20% to the fire department and the rest 80% to admin.
Okay, Councillor Frenier?
So this lean review, we are already very lean, or we wouldn't be getting these requests. So I don't understand. I know the last time we hired a consultant to do that for us. So you're saying this staff person would be qualified to do a complete structural lean review? I need to understand that, or are they just going to facilitate hiring someone to do the review of our operations and all the different departments? So I need clarification on that, because, I mean, I don't even know why we need a lean review at this point. We're lean. And I do think all the departments are doing the best they can with what they have to work with. So, I mean, this position could be even more valuable to get other things rolling. If the lean was out of there, I don't understand. And if I could, through the chair, just if you could expand on what that means. Like, I think we're already lean, and why would we need to have this staff person spending all that time on that?
Yeah, so I think you're kind of flipping kind of 2 different languages around in regards to the definition of lean. So yeah, we are lean in regards to the staffing. The staffing reviews have been done, and that's what they've been done, is staffing reviews, and led by the individual directors within the department or through corporate. A lean process is when you, like a great example is, so when I came in as CEO, I think it was all POs came across my desk for signatures. I had supervisors that couldn't even spend, I think, $100 or $1,000, like, without my approval or the individual directory approval. We reviewed that, take a look at the procurement, and change that. And so I sign off on the odd one now, but I don't add any value to that process. So that's what it is that it's value stream mapping of all the processes, and it's you know, having someone kind of look at it in a different view, and so that's what the lean. The hospital is big in lean, and it's one of their drivers that help them in regards to the accreditation, and seen as a best practice. So that's what lean is. It's not specifically with staffing. It's taking a look at the processes. And that's why I said is, like, you know, it could be Michelle, Robin, and Maddie, you know, putting a project together to, you know, better serve the public, but ended up reducing, you know, paper, and that would reduce the cost. So it's looking at the processes.
Thank you.
Mayor Gervais, then Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can start with a question. Under discussion and options, it speaks to strategic assistant estimated annual salary, $70,340. So that's what it references there. And then on the following page, it says financial considerations, deputy clerk. And then as an alternative, it says off to the right, it says $72,300, April start, assistant role. when the word assistant is used in both those instances, are we talking about the same position?
So through the chair, that's correct. The difference is that on the second slide, it's an April start and it includes benefits, whereas on the previous slide, that was just the salary. That's like an estimated salary without benefits for the full year.
Then if I can comment, so I wasn't having as much of an issue with 70,000 all in yearly for some position that is going to assist in a number of different places. I have issues with 72,300 all in, only starting in April, which by my math roughly puts it at 107,000 a year. Like, it's not to take away, because I don't want anyone thinking of this, it's not to take away from any of the work that anyone does or being overtaxed in terms of the work being done. This is a budget meeting, and I'm looking at deputy clerk coming in at 111,000 a year. I'm looking at deputy fire chiefs coming in at 186, or up there 187,000 a year. And so if this other position is a deputy clerk by a different name and coming in approximately the same amount, and we already axed the deputy chief position, or deputy clerk position, and we have a deputy clerk who is also our treasurer, I then take issue with it. Like, I appreciate trying to find a different way of doing it. The dollar amount, I find objectionable. So I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Giacono?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's obvious we're unable to carry the load. That's what it tells me. That's why we're going to the taxpayer again. Unlike the federal and the provincial government, who have a mandate to print cash, they can run as many deficits as they want. Municipal government cannot run a deficit. So what that means, if you want those services, you either have to pay for them or you have to make cuts. It's simple as that. And I mean, I can understand the frustration from the treasurer, CAO, and even around the table saying, you know, we understand, but here's what you got to do. You're going to have to increase your taxes by 10% to make that happen. And, you know, the municipal budget is dollars in and dollars out. There's got to be a stronger impact of communication, and as the CEO said, there's some sort of correlation now with other groups that are understanding, you know, what we're faced with right across the province, right across the country, in fact. And that's why groups such as FCM, AMO, the Warden's Caucus, the Mayor's Caucus, these groups have to come together as a united front to send the province a message. We can't do it anymore. It's simple. We cannot do it. You know, we'll become bankrupt. People are going to leave key positions because they can't handle the stress. And that message has to come from those correlated groups. Otherwise, we're going to be faced with this scenario every year. There's got to be more funding coming back to us from the provincial government, as was allotted years ago, through the OMP fund, or they keep changing the name so we forget about how many less dollars they're giving us. So that message has to go from every mayor, I think, in the you know, in the province of Ontario. And I don't think there's one mayor that would argue with that statement. We cannot do it. We're unable to carry the load. So what the heck does the province want from us? Do they want all the municipalities to, you know, lose their vital infrastructure programs? Do they want people not to serve on council, knowing how frustrating it is and how futile it is, because you can't help solve the problem? We're supposed to be here as problem solvers. I feel like we're monkeys in a cage, and you get thrown a banana every once in a while to make sure that, you know, the zoo's operating properly. There's got to be more input and more pressure on the provincial government. Without that, I mean, we're going to be faced with this scenario every year. A few years ago, Southern Ontario municipality had an increase of 30% in taxes. Obviously, to say the mayor and that council is not there anymore, but they were so far behind, they could not keep up. They made a drastic decision to increase the taxes by 30%. It happened. But you know what? That didn't alleviate the situation. They're still having tax increases. It's frustrating.
Okay, so we're we're dealing with a strategic assistant position. There's no motion on the floor. Councillor Frenier?
It's just my last question, then we'll try to come to some consensus here. I think I mentioned at the last budget meeting that when I was working in my full-time career, it got to the point where I couldn't get everything done either, and my management refused to hire anyone else. So basically what my immediate manager said was list all the things that don't have to be done, things that we ask of you, but maybe it doesn't have to be done. And maybe that's what this council, if we don't want to approve additional staff, we have to say, what is our service level? What are our staff keeping busy doing? And is it a necessity, or do we have to reduce our service levels, or things of that nature? So if we can't afford to get them help, we need to say, okay, what can come off your plate? What are we doing that is more of a public relations, if any? You know, maybe there's time-consuming things that can be taken away from staff that aren't affecting the bottom line of providing services to our residents. I guess that's all. And if we can't remove anything, well, then I guess we have to look at supporting our staff. So I don't know if anybody can answer me. Is there anything that's being done, like attending meetings that don't have to be? Things like that, I don't know, zooming in a little more. And that's what that's, I guess, the lean would do that. It would look at all these positions. So that's, to me, the most important thing that came out of this is like, is there things being done? Are there things, are there things being done that don't have to be done by that person or done at all? It's just something we started doing and we're continuing and we're bogging our staff down. So anyway, that's all I want to say is if we can't support them, maybe we need to remove things.
Okay, CEO and then Councillor Keel, then we'll move on if there's no motion.
Yeah, so in regards to the response there, attending budget meetings at 4 o'clock. For the third day is stuff that we don't need to do. You know, around the table here, you know, the amount of unpaid overtime that is done. You know, in regards to the clerk's role, that's probably about 300 hours of OT every year. You know, so if you, you know, if you want to ask us what, you know, what is core, then we're talking like water, sewer, picking up garbage. So it's not doing sportsplex, it's not doing transit, it's not doing community service, it's not sitting on boards to do about community safety and well-being. But if you don't do those things, what kind of community do you have? So, you know, if you go to the core has changed. And the core hasn't changed in regards to staffing. So, you know, those two individuals that have always been outside the mayor and the CEO office has always been like that for the probably last 30, 40 years. The names have changed, the faces have changed, but those two individuals have always been the same. You know, but everything else is different.
Councillor Keel, and I'll speak.
If we did this strategic assistant role and I guess thereby cut the deputy fire chief, what impact on the levy would we be saving? Because I think we're now down in the low 10-point-something%.
So through the chair, just to clarify, so it would be to cut the deputy chief position and add the strategic assistant position?
Yeah,
Is that what
because
you're
we've
saying?
already cut the deputy clerk, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be a decrease of $52,690 or 0.21 levy increase.
So we'd now did probably be 9 point something high ish.
I'm getting 10.33, but I'm just gonna look at the back. Yeah, because the library was 0.32 and this would be 0.21 and we were at 10.87.
Oh, okay.
So I have a question. What's the total, including benefits, what's the 70,340 for the strategic assistant plus the benefits, what's the total per year?
So we'd probably need to take a short recess because I'd have to go into my computer to
Oh,
pull out that
you do?
document. Sorry, I don't have that printed out.
Okay, so 70,340 plus benefits. Okay. So do you want to take a 5-minute break? 10-minute? Okay, we'll take a 10-minute recess. Welcome back to our budget meeting for January 6th. At the break, we asked the treasurer to find out the total salary for the strategic assistant.
So the full year impact of the strategic assistant, including benefits, would be $96,650.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions on that or motions? And that's something we can always revisit. Moving forward, moving forward, the deputy fire chief, I see we didn't deal with that last time.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, does committee want to move that off the table, or are we going to leave it on the table right now? So that's the motion that's been tabled. That's on the screen right now, so
Right. So do we have a Councillor, or Mayor Gervais?
Mr. Chair, if we don't deal with it, it's still in the budget, is it not?
That's right. So we need a motion then.
Well, the motion is there, so whether you want to follow formality that we're lifting it from the table, but I think we need to deal with this particular motion that was made in, I couldn't tell you if it was day 1, day 2, or what day it was,
Table
but.
it.
No, but there is a motion that the deputy chief position, the amount of, be removed, and it was tabled, and so all I'm saying is that do we not need to deal with it, or else it's still contained in
That's
the
what we're
budget?
saying, to deal with it now. Councillor Plummer?
I move that we lift the motion from the table so it can be discussed here now.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Keel, discussion? So the motion is lifted off the table. Deputy Fire Chief position, discussion? Motions? Yes? Okay, vote. Those in favor? Carried.
We were lifting the tabled motion for deputy fire chief.
Okay.
So now it's back on the table.
Okay, Councillor Plummer, and then Councillor Plummer.
So I move that we remove the deputy fire chief from the budget.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Giacono? Discussion?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
already
so
there. Okay, so the motion on the floor to remove the 124,990 from the budget. Discussion? Those in favor? Carried. Recreation programmer?
So the recreation programmer was the other item tabled. So the motion was that committee select option 2 to hire a recreation specialist / administrative assistant as a contract position for 18 to 24 months with options to renew. So that was tabled pending a discussion of what kind of savings there would be in a permanent versus term position. So the savings annually is $10,650 per year. So term employees are eligible to receive pension benefits. So this, and are subject to payroll taxes. So the savings there are limited to our health and dental plan. I will say that it can be difficult to hang on to term staff because they continue to seek permanent employment. And that this position has been recommended to address feedback from the city's recreation master plan. I don't know if Mr. DeRoche has any further comment on this.
Thank you, Treasurer. So yeah, I won't reiterate everything that was said at the last council meeting, just given the time that we have here. But one thing that I did want to touch on is, so in addition to our 73 recommendations for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, there were 5 moves that was talked about, and one of which is to invest into staffing capacities to deliver quality recreation services. So without investment, we have no delivery. Thank you.
Can you tell us what was the amount again of the term salary?
So a full year impact would be 83,650, with an estimated 2025 impact of 69,700 as a full-time permanent position.
Okay, is there a motion to lift it from the table? Councillor Plummer,
Just move to lift that motion from the table.
give me a seconder. Councillor Giacono, those in favor? Carried, it's on the table. It's on the committee. Select option 2 to hire a recreation specialist, contract position. Discussion, Councillor Frenier.
So when you only look at the differential of $10,000 for health and dental, we know that there's going to be a retirement in that, possibly be a retirement in that department in the coming, years, very soon, probably. We should just probably go with the full-time, and that would be my recommendation.
Sure, make it an amendment.
Actually, no, I would like to leave it in as it was originally budgeted, as one full-time position for recreation planner or programmer,
Right.
because we were talking about changing it to a term, thinking we could save money. But if the difference is only $10,650 a year, and we're gonna have a harder time keeping someone in that position, I just as soon pay the extra 10, because like I said, there's gonna be some movement in that department, and, we can't afford to have people leaving all the time.
CEO, do you want to respond?
Well, it's just a motion on the table
Yeah.
right now, so why
Right.
don't you call the motion?
So
Either it gets
we have-
approved
yeah,
or
we're just waiting for
defeated.
discussion. Right, I know. Any further discussion? Councillor Keel?
When we were here before Christmas, my memory is that there was a warning that if we don't add certain staff, that things will need to be cut, if my memory serves me correctly. Like services might have to be cut. Now, we did remove the summer ice. Are there further impacts that we would have if we didn't approve this position?
So through the chair, so it's kind of two sides of the house. We're talking from the programming side and delivering the recreation master plan. So if we don't hire somebody, ultimately the Parks and Recreation master plan sits on a shelf. There is 73 recommendations with subcategories. Each one of those recommendations are going to require maintenance. There's going to be a continuity and continuation of services as a result of those 73 recommendations. So that's essentially where we sit. Thank you.
Councillor Plummer?
So I think through discussion, we were talking about what this multi-sportsplex in the future and, going which way to, understanding that programming may be part of the contract that's being, kind of taken over by this future program or this future facility or developer. So I think with that, I certainly would like to see where this multi-sportsplex goes in the next year before we start adding staff to our complement that may not even be required in the future. So I certainly would be pushing to hold on this just for 1 year and then decide once we get this tender out, we can decide if we're moving ahead with a sportsplex with programming or not. I just wouldn't want to hire someone just to have their position become redundant in the near future. Thank you.
Mr. Giacono?
Some tough choices. Have to reiterate what Councillor Fournier said when her boss told her, if you can't get it done, you can't get it done. You don't hire new people, something falls off the plate. So I have a tendency to agree with Councillor Plummer that perhaps we should wait. We're making cuts in many other areas. I think they should be concurrent to what is happening and with the tax increases that we are facing.
Any further discussion? Councillor Keel, then we'll call the question.
So from the programming side, I thought 2024 was an exceptionally good year. The number of events, Very few people have told me since this summer that there was nothing to do in Pembroke, which was for 2 years, that was a constant theme ever since I got elected, was there's nothing to do here. So few people told me that this year. Jordan, could we keep up last year's schedule if we cut this from the budget? Like, last year being an exceptionally good year, is that something that you forecast we could at least maintain if we were to make this cut?
So through the chair, I mean, I think some of the events that had taken place, was through certain groups. Wasn't necessarily through our department specifically, so I can't really speak to those. Our signature events or programs that we do, we're planning to maintain them for this upcoming year in 2025. And, I think maybe we're kind of getting lost in the position of a programmer's position. This more is enhancing recreation. So with these recommendations, it's building on what we have right now. So as far as from a programming side and what we've done as a department, yes, we plan to continue doing that in 2025. But building on our recreation services would hinge then on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Thank you.
Leo?
I know there's a lot of, tough decisions around the table, and, again, this is another one of them. We needed, we all talked February 2023 in regards to the strategic plan, in regards to the rec master plan, that we needed that document. And now we got the recommendations, and now we're not going to do anything about it. So I did just, let that kind of settle a little bit. We're talking about a sportsplex facility. That's going to take Jordan and his team a lot of time to kind of work through over the next, couple of years to get it there. That's going to take stuff off of his desk in regards to what Councillor Frenier was saying is what he cannot do. Maybe he's not doing the sportsplex then. Facility, because he's going to have to start thinking about this rec master plan. So that's what we're talking about here. It's not again, we keep on around the table saying, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. Well, those 4 people back here are the ones who are doing it on top of everything else.
Through the chair, little off-the-cuff discussion in the halls, on our little break a few minutes ago, and it's like every municipality is going to be facing increases. And this council has some decisions to make. I mean, number one, we have to start increasing revenues. We need to open up some of our shared service agreements. We have to look at ways of bringing more revenue in. But we can't do that if staff doesn't have the time to do it. So again, shared service agreements, they take a long time. And you could ask Mr. Lewis how long they worked on the water sewer agreements. And a lot of staff time goes into that. That's not going to happen if staff can't do what they're doing already. They can't add something else. We have a master rec plan. We have an active living plan. We have an accessibility plan. So many plans. Well, then maybe we should stop plans. We stop plans and we just say status quo, as I said earlier today. But I mean, transit took up a huge part of staff time over the last couple of years. I could go on and on about different things that have taken staff time. When it comes to the sportsplex, well, that's still pie in the sky. Let's deal with today. Today we have a pool that isn't even open yet, that we spent a lot of money to fix. That could do us 15 years. This sportsplex, maybe it won't even include a pool. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. Until we have partners that say, I want to pay 50% of capital. I don't know about you, but I don't feel like spending $25 to $50 million only on the Pembroke repair. So that's pie in the sky. We need to deal with now and going forward, because I don't think, even if we did have a new sportsplex, it's not going to be for at least 15 years, in my opinion. That's my opinion. The pool we have now is fixed. So we have time to work with our partners. So let's not bite the hand that feeds us and rob staff, 15 years till maybe we get a new facility? I don't know. I'm starting to see the restraint. And if we want to move forward as a city, and yes, have our plans, our well-being plan, and all these plans, we can't do it on the shoulders of very few staff. And that's all I'm going to say. I mean, sure, you can put it off till next year. Next year, we're going to have a huge police budget increase. You know, and it's not going away. And I know I've heard people say, oh, 2%, that bit you in the... Well, you know what, it did. But that's what everybody was doing back then. Because it was like people were using their tax rate to compete to get people to build. So you can say what you like, but everybody was doing it back then. And yes, it was a mistake. Now I'm looking and I'm saying, wow, yeah, we should have been putting money away. But you know what? Hindsight is 20/20, isn't it? If we all had 20/20 vision now about the future, it would be easy to make these decisions as well. So we need to make some hard decisions, but we can't keep saying to staff, we sit here at budgets, but then you know what? In 2 months, someone around this table is going to say, well, we need to do this, and we need to come up with this plan, and we need to do this. And the same staff are going to be like, Anyway, that's what I'm going to put out there. That's it.
So I'll speak before we vote, if the committee will let me. So I was Vice Chair of Recreation last term, heavily involved in the department, and spoke regularly with the former Director of Recreation and the Recreation and the current one. The Recreation Master Plan kept getting postponed because of COVID, because of budget. If you want to move a community forward, you have to have facilities and services like transit and proper recreation hubs, which is what the Sportsplex idea is all about. And you know, respectfully, I don't think it's a pie in the sky. I think it's idea. When I made the motion a year ago, did my research, and know that it is a clear possibility. You know, not within 15 years, you know, I believe within 3 to 4 years, if all the stars line up, right? But it's something you have to look into and go forward and get all your information, do your due diligence, and move forward. Because we do have aging infrastructure. PMC, 71 years old, the pool, we got it fixed, but the change rooms aren't fixed, so the old pump house, et cetera. I don't want to get off topic here. But I tried to get, at one committee meeting we had a few years ago in recreation, you know, a second programmer, but we decided not to at that time. We're having events, Multicultural Festival, Busker Fest, which the Recreation Department on weekends, they're short-staffed. We want to be part of this process, and communities are built on partnerships. So Busker Fest comes in, they ask some stuff from recreation, you know, can we provide the services? Same with the Multicultural Festival. Recreation Master Plan is a key plan to move the city forward, to promote active living, to get residents to move here, to build the tax base. The Recreation Master Plan called, the number one recommendation was a recreation hub, which is something we should, you know, the P3, that's what we're pursuing. Because we can't afford to have all these facilities on our own. We can't go borrow 60 million, 90 million. We're not like Whitby, who built, they're building a new facility, or North Bay. We don't have the tax base. And by the way, both of those complexes that are being built got $25 million from the Canada Building Fund for green efficient building. So, you know, that's something we have to look at. But I'm going to support the term position for the motion. It'll get us started. We'll see where we're at. So I'm going to support it. So we'll call the question. The motion is that committee select option 2 to hire a recreation specialist administrative assistant contract for 18 to 24 months with option to renew. So those in favor? Those opposed? So the motion's defeated. Okay.
So
No,
clarification then for the treasurer that the recreation, well, I guess the programmer is in the budget, so we need a motion to remove it if we wanted to remove it. Okay, therefore I put a motion on the table to remove the recreation programmer.
do we have a seconder? Councillor Giacono? Discussion? Councillor Keel?
So this option, did it not get rid of one other position? Like, Parks and Rec started with 3 positions, right? So we are back to the beginning where there's now 2 non-programming positions of some sort. Maybe Jordan, you want to jump in with those 2 positions?
Yeah, so through the chair, they were operator positions.
Operator, so there's now 2 operator positions and 1 programmer position. Option 2 got rid of 1 operator position?
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct.
Okay.
Treasurer?
So the operations staff was passed under option 2. It was just the recreation specialist part of it that was held over pending more information on the benefit costs. So what was approved was changing it from 2 positions on the operations side to 1, as well as eliminating the summer ice and a few other minor budget
Snow plowing.
adjustments that went along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're down to 1 extra operator and currently 1, the programming specialist. Okay.
So any further discussion on the motion to remove the recreation programmer? Okay. Those in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? Okay, motion is defeated. Stays in the budget. Next item.
So we did distribute, Mike, thank you, sorry. So we did distribute, a sheet that's got like, sort of a blue title in it, sort of a separate item. So I did go, after day 2, I did go back to staff to ask if there were any further cuts, if everybody could look at their budgets again, because, we certainly appreciate that 10.87 is I don't think, where we want the budget to be. I mean, something under 10, I think would be more palatable. So each manager went back. Now, some managers have larger budgets than others. I do know that the fire chief and the building planning bylaw have smaller budgets, and they do typically spend every dollar they get. But staff was able to identify some potential changes, which are listed as potential cuts or changes, which could be considered. And that would equal a 0.7, if council was to accept them all, that would equal a 0.75% levy decrease. So that would push us, I think, under the 10 now, if they were accepted. So I'm just gonna steal the CAOs for a second here. So we could potentially decrease the contingency from 50,000 to 25,000. We haven't used the 50 in the past couple of years, so I'm thinking that we could, I feel comfortable with decreasing that. At the last meeting, we did talk about increasing professional fees for asset management, which we wouldn't require given the other motion, so we could decrease that to 30,000 and say that it's towards a lean review and some lean training, which was discussed at the last meeting. So that would be a $10,000 savings. We did look at, sort of trying to shave down a few others, looking at have we been too conservative with some of our budget estimates. So you will see a number of changes related to tax interest revenue, office equipment, health and safety training, document scanning, professional fees. In the bylaw section, we hadn't added the vacancy registration fee revenue of $10,000. We did have in there an unserviced sidewalk reserve contribution, which we could eliminate for $25,000. And the roads Mr. Lewis through his roads budget did look at a number of items and was able to come up with some savings. For example, looking at the dead end barriers and just repairing the existing at Elgin Street, perhaps phasing in the ditching contract over a year or two for a $30,000 savings. And the other big item is if we consider 2023 as a normal snow season, we could look at reducing some of the snow removal and sanding and salting budgets, as there is a reserve available should it be required if our budget isn't quite high enough. So in total, if all of those changes were acceptable, that would be a savings of $187,000, $187,350, or a 0.75% increase. We do also have a couple of tweaks in the capital budget, but we can talk about those further once we get to the capital. Committee could accept these budget changes proposed by staff through a motion if they so desire.
Motions, questions, comments, Councillor Keel.
Can it be done in one motion? I would move that we accept the amendments proposed by staff that were just presented.
Operating and capital.
Operating.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Plummer. Those motion discussion. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried.
That brings us into water and sewer.
Nay?
Did we settle the issue around deputy clerk or strategic assistant? Did we, or is that just sort of, it's dead? Okay, so nothing, okay. We could
Yeah.
come back to it if we wanted to, but I just thought we were taking
Yeah.
care of old
Yeah,
business
that
tonight.
can always come back.
Okay.
Under Ontario's Safe Drinking Water Act, as you know, as we talk about every year, we are required to provide financial plans to ensure sufficient revenue is generated to provide safe drinking water to our community. And we do base these rates on formal rate studies that we prepare with an outside consultant. So in 2019, 2020, Watson Associates projected our rates from 2020 through to 2029. The agreement reached between the city and the township of Laurentian Valley requires us to use the rates in this rate study. And a new rate study is required for 2025 to 2029. But delays in feeder studies have delayed this new rate study. So in 2025, we will continue to use a 2019 study. And we are currently reviewing our ability to complete the rate study this year to satisfy Laurentian Valley, based on the information we have, given that the feeder studies will continue to take a little time to resolve. So this means that the average increases, the increases in the 2025 budget will be the same as previous years, with the flat rate water increasing by 5.7%, the metered water increasing by 9.8, the sewer flat by 5.2, and the sewer metered by 6.9. So if we look at how that impacts the different rates the city has between flat and metered, that's on this slide. So we can see that a single unit, the rate would be going up from $575 and change to $608. The sewer rates for a single unit flat, which is the bulk of residential in Pembroke, would be increasing from $917 a year to $964. So overall, the average residential taxpayer can expect to pay $6.71 more for water and sewer in 2025 per month. And then additional information is available on the second unit and each additional unit there. And again, the impact for metered customers can be seen here. And combined, a multi-res with 8 units would be increasing by $408, commercial by $153, and industrial $185 per year. And the monthly increases are on the slide as well. A few items that have come up in this study. One of them is inflow and infiltration. So the operations department has undertaken an infrastructure needs study to facilitate long-term planning. And these studies have certainly been complicated by water inflow and infiltration into the city's sanitary sewer system. So the operations department will need to explore this further in 2025 through public education, flow monitoring, and data review. Potentially, they could conduct a smoke test and sidewalk review to help try to determine the sources of this inflow and infiltration and correct any issues that are found. And I believe they're still in the examination period of this, and they haven't fully committed to what they're going to accomplish in 2025, but these are some of the things that have been discussed. And I don't know if, do you want to expand on that at all, Mr. Lewis, at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, Madam Treasurer, through you, Chair. So we've got a number of studies that are on my desk right now that I'm working on, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 17 different studies that I'm working on right now. So inflow and infiltration is one of the big ones that we've been talking about for a number of years, and I'm not going to get into details right now, but it is something we have been talking about, we have been looking at. We're all aware that inflow and infiltration is causing us some grief in our sanitary system and in our treatment system. The bottom line is, with the 20-year facility plan that we're working on for the Pollution Control Center and the infrastructure needs study, if we don't get a handle on inflow and infiltration, we're going to be looking at having to build a second pollution control center, a second treatment plant. Our existing plant doesn't allow for any further expansion, and our existing plant is not going to handle the capacity that we see coming in the next decade based on the information that we have right now. So we do need to work towards the inflow and infiltration study, getting a handle on where we have to act to remediate some of the issues that we have. Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have Councillor Frenier, then Giacomo.
Well, if staff wanted to say something,
Oh, yeah,
if
go
not, I
ahead.
was going to go ahead and put forward a recommendation, but
Is this about the rates? The rates? Okay, yeah, that's fine.
I would put forward a motion that we accept the 2025 water and sewer budgets as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Keel. Discussion. Councillor Giacomo.
May sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna play that old record again. Why do we continue to put a water meter in a home when it's not monitored for use? Is that still continue? Do we put water meters in new homes that are not functionally working to see how much water is being used? Mr. Lewis, perhaps, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do still continue to put water meters in new homes. And presently, we do not read water meters for billing purposes. We do not read water meters on residential homes, on single-unit residential homes. We all understand that changes are being made to, through building and through development and regulated changes where single-family homes are now not single-family homes, and additional units are being built in some of these, which may change our thoughts about reading meters in the future. The other thing that meters help us with, not just us, but the resident and the owner of the building, is leak detection. So we do read meters. Just because we're not billing that residential property on a volume basis, we are reading some of those meters. It helps us get an understanding as to whether or not we've got water loss in that particular neighborhood. It will help the resident understand whether they've got water loss. The toilet is running on a continuous basis because the meter is actually moving, but nobody's using any water. So a number of other reasons why we have meters into new homes, why we continue to request meters be installed, and why we do read those in various different locations throughout the city.
I've heard that over the 20-year period, and that we're going to look to the future, so I'm just have some consternation. If you have a builder that's building a home, who pays for the water meter? Is it the builder? Is it the home buyer? And is that an additional charge put on to, onto that particular facility that really is not necessary? I'm just, if you feel it is necessary from the standpoint of finding about leakage, what does it cost you to find that leakage? What does a meter cost today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure what a meter is costing. I'm going to say roughly about $500 for a meter.
Higher, Mr. Plummer? Would you say higher?
Oh, I'm not here to contradict the chair, but I think I've built a few houses, and I believe they're a little bit higher than that. One time, but maybe that's included with my plumbing bill too. They may add a little bit extra labor charges on that, but no, they are board the cost of the developer to build the home, and then obviously all developed costs are passed on to the consumer if they purchase the home. So, but I believe I concur with Mr. Lewis that they also serve as a backflow prevention is another thing that I believe Mr. Lewis didn't mention, and that's a very important thing. And we don't have with a loss of supply, we don't have bad water coming back into the system, and then we have to flush valves. It costs more time and staff time to go out and do that, and maybe a boil water alert and things like that. I mean, so they are valuable.
Okay, so the water meter is a valued service to the home. It's not an unnecessary expense. And will it someday be read for purposes of monitoring cost? Because right now it's a flat rate. We're going to approve a budget that says your water is going to be X number percentages, this amount. Yet if the water meter is being read, would that affect the amount of the increase?
Treasurer, then Councillor Frenier, then Mayor Gervais.
So I can certainly answer part of that. So I can attest that we do read meters. We do have test reading runs that we do to validate some of the assumptions that we have in our rate studies. So we may not read every single meter, but we do have like what we consider representative properties that after we read the regular, metered use commercial properties, we will have staff also go and collect the reads for some of these other properties, and we kind of collect this data over time just to make sure that how much we have assumed certain types of users consume, remains the same. So we do use that data, which then helps inform our rate study.
So commercial, industrial, but not residential?
So commercial industrial is red because the bulk of them are metered customers. Residential is typically flat, but it's not to say that we don't read some of these residential meters. We have done sort of test meter runs, so we don't use it for billing, but we just use it for data gathering to help validate some of the assumptions we make in the studies. In terms of the whole flat versus metered water billing, there has been discussions about that before, and a lot of municipalities that had metered billing, people would reduce their consumption, but their bill would remain the same, and there was a lot of frustrations with that. But at the end of the day, like a lot of the water and sewer is fixed cost base. I mean, we still have an enormously expensive water plant and sewer plant that we have to pay for. We still have chemicals. Like the bulk of the costs are fixed costs. They don't really vary too much. And like how much water flows through it, is a small percentage of the total. So when the city decided to implement billing for residential, it was decided that a flat rate would make the most sense. It's not to say, we can't reconsider that in the future, but it certainly, I think, based on the type of cost that we're trying to cover, makes the most sense, I think, still. But again, it's not that the data that's collected is completely useless. It does have other benefits.
Thank you. Councillor Frenier.
I didn't want to speak again. I already put the motion forward, but thank you.
Mayor Gervais, Then we'll call the question.
It's fine, Mr. Chair. I was just going to comment on the backflow portion.
Okay. Yes?
Just to clarify, are we talking about the rates or the budget? Because Marcia can still go over the actual, the operating cost part of the water and sewer budget, but if we don't,
Water and sewer are basically out of our hands. So there's so much regulation around the treatment of water and sewer that I think we've spent a lot of time talking about other things that can be talked about, but these are really things that are a slam dunk. So yes, I am willing to put forward a motion to accept the budget and the rates as presented.
By water and sewer budgets as presented. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item, review of capital budget, is that the one?
yep, so next up on the agenda is the draft capital budget. So to keep property taxes low, as you know, as we discussed at the last budget, our property tax contribution to fund capital projects has lagged behind inflation since 2021. So in this budget, we have proposed a 6.5% levy increase as the minimum. Although there are projects we could decrease, so we have identified two that we'll talk about in a few slides. So the 6.5% levy increase that's in the budget as presented is a $162,000 increase. So every year we do go through all of the capital budget requests, as staff. We look at how much money we have, how much work there is to do, and we do try to, make our annual capital budget reflect a reasonable budget increase. So there are a number of projects that were cut just because there was insufficient funding. So we would have to significantly increase our capital budget to make these projects happen. So just so you have a better understanding of how the staff process works, we have listed the big ones here of the ones that were left on the cutting room floor. So Nelson Street Phase 3 of $3.8 million was included. Resurfacing O'Brien. We did want to start to introduce accessibility projects into our capital budget, but at the end of the day, we felt there was other projects that were higher priority for the city. We do need to resurface the Market Square parking lot, but we have been continuing to repair it because that needs to be completed in conjunction with Albert Street, which is again, pushed down the road a little bit. The PACC siding is in poor condition, but we've left that for now. It's still functional. Both the arenas need floor replacements, which would be a significant investment in both facility. So in terms of these two facilities itself, we are proposing as a strategy is to kind of group the major items that are needed for each arena into a major renovation project and fund it through debt in the future. But we are sitting on that idea for this year just to see how the Sportsplex P3 project progresses. And I understand from the CAO that will be part of the scope of work of this owner's engineers to take that into consideration as a plan is discussed between the parties. Again, the seating needs to be replaced at the PMC. There are certainly seats that are broken or in poor condition in the PMC itself. The skate park, I know there's an interest amongst the user group to expand the skate park, and there's a certain amount of I think, volunteers that would be willing to participate in such a project. So we would look towards a Trillium grant potentially in the fall to help fund that. And as well, I think operationally it would benefit the rec department to have a park at Riverside, have a garage at Riverside Park. Apologies, I'm getting tired too. So that would certainly increase efficiencies because, in discussing, the usage of equipment, staff do drive equipment to and from the ops garage at the start, end of the day, and over lunch, back and forth. And, they could be spending time on the equipment as opposed to trying to store it more on site where it's used as opposed to having it drive it back and forth through the city at different parts of the day. But again, you know, we only have so much money, so those are some of the things that were eliminated. Another big change that we discussed amongst staff is the Phase 2 Isabella Street catchment area. So we did complete Phase 1 this year. Looking at Phase 2, just given the state of the infrastructure in the Phase 2 area, to address some of the issues. So originally, that was going to be a $6.8 million project.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry. Yeah, I guess so.
Apple's going to do a report.
So yeah, the sanitary sewer is in poor condition from Moffat to Doran, which is about a 250-meter stretch. But again, a $6.8 million budget for a single project is more than the funding we have available year to year. So given the funding constraints, you know, Mr. Lewis worked hard with Mario McLaughlin to try to come up with an alternate proposal to reduce it down to 3.7 million. Unfortunately, to do that would require the addition of 78,000 in routine cleaning and flushing. And the project would then be limited to Moffat Street from Renfrew to Mary. So the 78,000 would just be an operating cost that we'd have to add just to keep the system going in 2025. And I don't know if you have any other comments on that particular project, Mr. Lewis? No? Okay. So, you know, so these are certainly some of the difficulties that we see with each budget, and this one in particular is, you know, quite difficult. So we will talk a little bit, I think, in the next couple slides about the condition of our roads itself, and if Jennifer's voice can handle it, I'll see if she's up to.
We'll give it a try.
So Jennifer's got a bad cold right now, so she's a little raspy, but we'll pass it back to Jennifer for a few slides.
So the sidewalk conditions, currently the city owns and maintains 65 kilometers of sidewalks. The average sidewalk condition index of the entire network is 78 or in good condition, and 10 kilometers of that are in poor or less condition. And then there's just a map of the city, so the colors correspond to the condition. And then for the roads, there's 100 kilometers of roads with an average PCI of 67 in fair condition or more. And 28 kilometers of that is poor or less. And again, that's just a map of the condition.
So that's just to give you an idea of like where our system is at right now. Another area that's often discussed at council is budget estimates versus tender results. And I know on the staff side, I think we get a little frustrated sometimes because we only take the projects that are over budget to you, and you don't see a lot of the projects that are under budget. So we did do an analysis of all of the tender results from this year, I think, till November, and I'll just pass the mic over to Marcia to discuss this one further.
Okay, so for the budget estimates versus the tender results, so as some of the council have asked in the past, to give you guys just a little bit of an idea as to our procurement, and over the year, for the 2004 year, we had 23% that were over budget, and actually 77% of our procurements were under budget, which is a great thing. I know that I've seen a change since I started here, so when I kind of first started was kind of the end of the COVID years, and we would have maybe one or two people submit a bid. Now we're getting anywhere from 3 to 5 bids, so we're really happy with that. And I project for the 2025 year that we're going to have better rates come in because we're going to have more people bidding.
So we just wanted to bring that to your attention because I know that's often a question when it comes to capital projects is how confident are we? I mean, we never really know till the tender results come in, but we do have a high percentage that's under budget where we usually see the over budgets is in projects with a higher level of complexity, and the Isabella Street catchment area would be an example of that kind of high complexity project with a lot of moving parts. When we look at capital project inflation and where our contribution to capital has been sitting over the past few years, as we mentioned last year, we are lagging behind. So we're lagging behind inflation by roughly almost $500,000. So since Q3 2020, the StatsCan Building Construction Index for non-residential has increased by over 40%, where our funding has only been increasing by, through taxation, has only been increasing by almost 17%. And as we saw in our non-core asset management plan, we have a lot of pressures. So this is certainly, you know, I don't think helping our situation by not, you know, trying to join those two lines together with how inflation is and how much funding we're providing to capital projects. If we look at the impact of us not funding the gap year over year, and we add all of those gaps together, that represents $1.9 million of funding. So that would be another roads project we could do this year if we had been continuing to fund the gap year over year. So by not maintaining pace with inflation, our asset renewal is falling further and further behind. So I just wanted to highlight this because I think this will be sort of the story, because we're going to go back and do a full asset management plan, which is due at the end of June, which will have both our core and our non-core, you know, married together. So certainly I think some of the financing recommendations moving forward is going to be saying like we need to address this gap, and we need to have I think a dedicated commitment to how much we're going to increase our capital every year, you know, for the next 5-10 years, to try to better replace assets when they're due. So certainly as we kind of look forward, there are a number of projects we have waiting in the wings. The operations department has a multi-year capital construction forecast, and you know, I've noticed that like their forecast really seems to require at least 2 major projects a year, based on the condition of our infrastructure, and that's major projects that include both the road plus the underground services that need to be replaced. Where, as we saw with the Isabella Street catchment area, we can only afford to do a small one project and not 2, and certainly not 2 big ones. So certainly we have a significant amount of pressure in the major reconstruction projects that are required in the city in the years ahead. And this is just an example of some of the larger ones that are on the books from 2025 to 2030. And we certainly do not have money in the budget to cover this level of investment. So I just wanted to highlight the annual gap is $1.8 million. If we were to take all of that, just that one, you know, major reconstruction projects the city needs, and how much money there is, it's, you know, we need to be putting in an extra 1.8 million into the budget every year to make something like this happen, just in this one area, not looking at buildings, not looking at other pressures. So I believe there's a question on the floor right now.
When it comes to the roads projects, I know oftentimes it's not actually taxation money, it's usually grants. Is the grant based on like nothing in particular other than what because I think it's mostly I think federal grants or I'm not even going to say which one it is. Is that grant money like based on anything? Is it based on how many, like, do we put in proposals as to how many road projects we want to do? Could you maybe just explain to anybody watching how we get the grant monies for the roads? Because I do believe even in the current budget, that's the bulk of the funding for roads, as opposed to tax dollars.
Yeah, that's correct. So from the tax money that goes towards roads, it gets split up. It goes towards major projects, but it also goes towards our sidewalk renewals. It also goes to resurfacing, which is just, the underground infrastructure is fine, but, it's the roads got a lot of potholes in it. It's not drivable anymore. So we certainly kind of carve up the roads budget into a couple of different categories. The money we get from higher levels of government does typically go towards these major reconstruction projects, and they're a combination of formula-based and application-based. The provincial government over the past several years has been increasing their formula-based funding, which is called OCIF, and it's based on the replacement costs of infrastructure across Ontario, and we get a percentage of that based on what our replacement cost is compared to all the other municipalities in Ontario. So that funding envelope has been increasing, which is good, but it still falls short, I think, of the volume of renewal that's required in our municipality. And I know is the same across all municipalities in Ontario. We're all suffering that, there's more projects than money. And the federal gas tax, which is now called the Canada Community Building Fund, is similar. It's based on an envelope of money that's allocated amongst all municipalities. So other than those two amounts, which we can typically count on year over year, we do have opportunities to apply on a competitive basis against all these other municipalities for infrastructure projects. We have been fortunate. The operations department has put forth some good applications, and I think Bennett Street's been an example of one of the funding. We also got significant funding through the Community Connecting Links program for Pembroke Street West, which was very much needed and very much appreciated. So we do get, I would say, a good share of application-based funds from the province or the federal government, but again, it still falls short of the volume of pressures that the city has.
That last part, Madam Treasurer, is where I was hoping you were going to take it, which is the criticism that we get for not doing this road, not doing that road. I mean, we have a list of roads that we know we would like to complete, but we certainly don't have $20 million. And I don't know what kind of tax increase that would be, but I'm assuming it's somewhere upwards of 100% tax increase to do all the roads. So yes, we try and do as many roads as we can, but the taxpayer, and I say this politely because it's also tax money from the federal and province, but largely what's driving our efforts is in fact not on the immediate backs of Pembroke taxpayers. It's us getting this grant money, it's us getting special project money. That's what actually allows us to do roads, because without that, our roads would be in such bad shape it wouldn't even be funny. So I think there's somewhat of a misconception with some of the voters in Pembroke that they're paying all these taxes and the roads aren't getting done. Again, that's because roads are so incredibly expensive that we can't do roads on the backs of taxpayers. So I think that's just something that the people don't understand, and that was a really good explanation from you. Thank you.
Jagano?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At one time, development charges helped offset some costs. We have a number of subdivisions that are sitting in the, just in the shadows, Gulfview, LaPointe, to Burcombe. All of these are going to need sidewalks. Under the asset management plan, how do we handle the costs that will be associated with those new sidewalks, new equipment, et cetera, when development charges are being reduced or negated? Anybody have an answer?
Did you want to comment, Ms. Sorio? No.
No answer, thank you. But I just thought we're going to be faced with the expense because the sidewalks will have to be plowed, equipment will have to be purchased. So in our long-term asset management forecast, do we anticipate those costs, or do we just decide one day, oh, Gulfview has been developed and there's a kilometer and a half of sidewalks. Now we have to come up with two pieces of equipment. Do we advance plan for that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do to a certain extent in what we can forecast. So the 20-year multi-year, the multi-year capital construction forecast that Madam Treasurer mentioned, the Operations Department develops, includes the impacts of development to a certain extent. The same thing with the infrastructure needs study, the 20-year facility plan development, and the need to increase the size of sewers, for example, is included in those plans that we put together. So yes, we are working towards the future. We are forecasting the needs into the future. They go into the water and sewer rate study. They go into the development charges study. All of that information wraps up into various different studies to help us forecast our needs into the future. Hoping that answered your question.
I just wanted to point out, though, that, the last development charges rate study that we did recommended a significantly higher charge than what we actually implemented, though, because we want to be competitive with neighbors. So, if we don't levy the amounts that are recommended in the study, that means that automatically the whole tax base pays for it.
Councillor Plummer?
Just a point of information, that study recommended a development charge of $25,000 per unit. Those are rates compared to Ottawa. If you think a developer is going to spend $25,000 per unit to build a multi-residential in the city of Pembroke, where the rents are not as high as Ottawa and the infrastructure is not here, they're not going to build here. We've had good development from developers that have brought in multi-residential, redeveloped downtown areas. We've got developers, as Councillor Jacquino's made, they're on the cusp. They've got subdivisions planned to be developed. If we raised our rates to $25,000 per unit, all that development would stop. You wouldn't have a developer in town that'd be interested in developing. They go right next door to Larson Valley, where they could pay a fraction of the prices. That's why we want to be comparable.
Just for a point of information, Ms. Sawyer will be bringing a report to council tomorrow on the status of subdivisions in Pembroke. Any further questions for the treasurer, Councillor Frenier?
Through the chair, maybe not directly at the treasurer, but I'm seeing, if I go back a little bit further, there is a recommendation coming. I want to question, so the recommendation proposed is to consider setting a formal annual capital levy increase of 2% per year to close the funding gap. I'm sorry, yeah, 45. So I'm wondering, is the 0.65% increase that is a few pages back, 0.65, would that bring it up to the 2%? Do you know what I'm saying? Like on page 34, it's saying that 2025 budget funding increase of 0.65%. But then on page 45, the recommendation is 2%. So what I'm saying is that funding increase of 0.65, would that bring it up to a total increase of 2%? No. So the recommendation is actually to increase that more. Okay. That's what I wanted to know. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure what the increase was right now that we were following. I thought maybe it was 1.35, but it's not. Okay.
So through the chair. So the 0.65 is what was presented in the original budget. But I guess what I'm saying with this is that the direction we should be going is and I certainly, this is a difficult year to have this conversation. It's probably every year from now on. It's probably going to be difficult because we know going to have a big policing increase next year.
Yeah.
But we definitely need to be at least thinking about having a set increase for the capital levy every year to try to close the gap. And certainly, when you see my asset management recommendations with the June report, you can expect that my recommendation will be something like this. And, we'll maybe have a more defined percentage. It might be, 1.87 or it could be 2.54 or something, but it'll be something like a set annual increase to try to close the gap.
Okay,
So it's so I just wanted to prepare this information to get you thinking about it so that we come back with more asset management planning, you're not kind of caught by surprise from it. Just
Yeah.
so you know what to expect. Basically.
So I understand, and like, the 2%, to me, I think it's absolutely needed. So I think we revisit this at the end of the budget and say, okay, where are we? Can we afford to increase that capital reserve? And I think at that point, we look at it, because it is important, but there's a lot to discuss before we get to the end of this budget. So I would like to just recommend that we go back to this, if I have support around the table, just to go back to this and say, what can we increase that? Okay, thank you.
So that brings us to the draft capital budget itself. So on the next few slides, we have the breakdown of the capital budget by project type. So between buildings, roads, equipment, parks, and water sewer, as well as how these projects are financed. So as we talked about, there are, $5 million of grants that the city will be receiving from higher levels of government and other organizations to help fund our plan. And you will note that 3.6 of that is targeted at roads and bridges, which is primarily related to the formula-based funding that we receive from higher levels of government, as well as roughly 2.3 million in tax dollars that are directed towards the different capital projects that we'd like to undertake in 2025. A breakdown of all of the grants that are in the draft budget are listed on this slide here. You'll note that some are unconfirmed, and I don't know that, I would say odds are we're not going to get all of the unconfirmed, but we do include them in the budget just in case we get it. So, we will receive information on this in the coming months. There are a number of grant applications out there right now that we're just waiting for a decision on. So that's how the 5 million breaks down between the different grant funding opportunities. Again, from reserve funding, this is a list of all of the different reserves that would be supporting the capital plan. I will say the general capital reserve, the reduction in the general capital reserve is quite high, but again, it is linked to a number of unconfirmed grants, and I don't expect that we're going to receive all of the funding for all of the applications that we have out there right now. So that's just to further explain where some of the reserve funding is coming from. We do typically receive some support for the waterfront, although we have been told that that funding is winding down. We do anticipate, as discussed in closed, a potential land sale for next year. And we do expect to receive about $22,000 from LV based on 2024 capital spend. And as well, we also expect to receive funding through our water rates, through our sewer rates. And we did include a project for discussion related to a potential debenture for a Quarry Road extension. So as was presented to council, the 2024 Transportation Master Plan that was conducted in conjunction with the Township of Laurentian Valley did recommend the construction of a ring road. And a few options were presented to connect Boundary Road to McKay Street and Drive-In Road. Certainly, in staff's opinion, the Quarry Road extension is the most feasible option, with Phase 1, Paul Martin to McKay, estimated at a cost of $4.9 million. So this falls outside, I would say, the scope of our normal road replacements. So we would typically look at debt to fund construction of this type. So we have included it as a discussion item. We are already experiencing traffic issues on a number of streets in our community, which include Bell, Angus, Campbell Drive, and Pembroke Street East. And certainly the construction of a ring road would certainly help alleviate congestion and bottlenecks. If we were to undertake this project using debt, that wouldn't impact this budget. It would impact future budgets. So if we were to finance $4.9 million over 25 years with a 4% interest rate, that would equate to a $311,000 debt repayment every year, which would be a 1.25% levy increase. So we wouldn't see that, in the first year of construction. It would usually be, you'd see half of that the 6 months following construction, and then all of that debt repayment the year after. So you wouldn't have to repay the debt, until like 2 or 3 years out. The only impact while the project was being constructed would be interest on any temporary financing that would be needed to finance the construction. But we did want to put it out there that this is, a recommendation from our transportation master plan, and, to get council thinking about, is this something we want to undertake? What year would we want to undertake a project like this? Because certainly, we have traffic now. I don't know anybody that's, trying to drive to the LCBO at 4 p.m. on a Friday and take Pembroke Street East. Good luck to you. You're going to be on the road for half an hour. So I will pass it back to the chair.
Thank you. Any questions about that one, Councillor Plummer?
So this was presented in the traffic master plan, and I think it's important that we don't lose sight of how this will alleviate some traffic coming down. Most people, if you're traveling down Boundary Road, when you end up at the end of Boundary and you want to get into Laurentian Valley or to get to the Quebec side for doing business, you have to go back onto, you got to backtrack onto Town Line and then around, and this just makes sense to continue the focus, as well as people coming off the highway and then traveling down Paul Martin Drive and then cutting across, continuing Quarry Road and out the industrial section. We have a lot of tractor trailer traffic that comes down Town Line. That's a tight corner. There's a house in the corner, always is an issue. We have also tractor trailers that are traveling down Paul Martin, and then now they're causing, scraping and rutting in the road because there's just so many that travel that corner and, travel around that bend. I know that's on the plan for resurfacing with the Connecting Link program. This, we saw how much traffic there was when construction was done on Town Line, and how that really impacted the area. So I think it's something we've all talked about, and we've all thought, this makes sense. Why wasn't it done years ago? Now it's being presented to us, and yes, it is a debenture. It's going to cost money, but also we also did this project with Laurentian Valley as a conjoint project. So is there an opportunity to go back to Laurentian Valley after the fact and say, hey, we're moving ahead with this project. What kind of funding, as we're have a partnership on this is going to impact both communities. What kind of funding can we look at receiving from that municipality? So I think it's prudent to move forward. So I would certainly want to move forward with the project. As I say, the traffic's not getting any less. We've got more development in the area. We've heard about future developments, on our doorstep. It just makes sense to, interconnectability between the two municipalities, and then maybe get some heavy truck traffic off our back streets and stay on the industrial section. So I would move that we move forward with the project and look to debenture it. Thanks.
Do we have a seconder? Yes, Treasurer?
So it is in the budget right now. So we would have to move to take it out.
Thank you for
Oh, it
clarification.
is in the budget.
4.9 million financed through debt. So we would have to bring more reports forward, because I would have to get formal approval to complete a loan application. But if you weren't interested in pursuing it in 2025 budget, you would have to have a motion to pull it out of the 2025 budget.
Councillor Frenier?
So I like what Councillor Plummer was saying about, talking to our neighbors, because it is going to help them too. They're building right on our border, which is going to put more stress. It's going to bring more people into our community, but it's definitely going to put more stress, especially on the Bell Street, Angus Campbell area. And LCBO they're all over the place now, so that should help a little. You can buy it anywhere. But anyway, that being said, if it's in the budget, I would like to open up the discussions before we go ahead and budget money. Maybe they will be open to discussions on cost sharing those projects. But that being said, I mean, this is a big budget, and it is something that needs to be done, because we have all talked about it. So I just wanted to comment about that. I'd like to open up the discussion sooner rather than later on cost sharing for these projects.
Thank you. Councillor Giacono, then Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you yourself have said, we have to have some vision. And Councillor Plummer, I think is looking down the road, maybe not in our lifetime, 50 years from now. I presume this whole region will be one. And I think we really have to, put all our ducks in order and start the negotiations or the talks, not only with Laurentian Valley, but I also think with, the town of Petawawa. Town, yeah, it is not a village now, it's the town of Petawawa. Just to see that, and as the military base continues to grow, there'll be added impact. So moving forward with a vision in regards to this, I think is very, very astute, and we have to do it.
Councillor Keel, going to say he'll speak before you. Is that okay?
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to put you on the spot, Brian, but I will. Brian, you got off easy on the water and sewer budget. As we talk about this in regards to negotiations, and that certainly will take time, and certainly for you, how will the negotiations fit into your work plan for 2025? With the importance of having the rate study done for the water and sewer. I think that's the priority, because currently I have a feeling right now that we're not charging the proper rates, and it should be higher. So I think it's essential that we get the rate study done in 2025, but I'm not sure how the negotiations in this project. The negotiations portion, I think you put in the actual project in it because you've got it in the budget, but now we're talking about negotiations. How would that fit into your work plan for 2025?
Through you, Mr. Chair, as blunt as I possibly can, it doesn't fit into my work plan. Negotiating with the township on funding a road project, boundary road project, if you want to call it that, or a shared road project, does not fit into my work plan at all. I've got all the studies that I referred to before, and to complete the development charges study and the water and sewer rate study, I still need the INS, I still need the 20-year facility plan, I still need all the infrastructure, inflow and infiltration. So I can't fit into my schedule negotiating a roads project.
So it just emphasizes the fact of something else is kind of thrown back onto staff without the resources to do it.
Keel, then Councillor Frenier.
So I was going to ask, I'm assuming that if we are rerouting this traffic, because I am thoroughly enjoying the overall road network, whether I ever see it or not. I guess my question was going to be that at the moment, I think the entire project on the budget is for a $4.9 million debenture. So if we just left this and moved on and then just don't do it, it doesn't actually change the taxation budget or anything. So, I mean, I have lots of questions for Mr. Lewis that I think I should probably take offline about the quarry road. So my thought was that we just leave it alone right now, even though it sounds like it might not even happen this year. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean anything, I think is my question to the treasurer. So I think we just move on at this moment.
Councillor Frenier, then we'll take a break.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mr. Lewis, sorry. Mr.
I just want to say that that's exactly what I was going to say. What Councillor Keel said, it won't affect this budget. It's
Through the chair, so that I can clarify the conversation the CAO and I are having. Negotiating with the Township of Laurentian Valley on a shared project doesn't fit my work plan, but the project does. And if we're thinking that we may want this project to happen in 2025, even early 2026, I need to start running. Consultants are going to have to be hired. There's due diligence studies that are going to be needed. There's geotechnical investigations that have to be done. There's some major utilities that run through that existing unopened road allowance that we're going to have to look at relocating. So I'm just saying, if this is a project that we feel is going to come to fruition, I'm saying that fruition, sorry, coming to fruition in the not too distant future, we got to start working at it. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands the work plan for the project and the work plan for negotiating is two separate things, and we can't hold everything off forever.
So I guess what I don't know how we want to clarify this, but I'm in favor of this project. I like this one and the Boundary Road extension, so I am in favor of doing this. I'm just thinking that, you know, I don't think we're giving our approval for the project today. I'm assuming studies and actual costs and stuff would come from you to actually go forward with the project at some point?
Through the chair, yes, but it has to be a line in the budget before I can start.
Which
For
is
our
why
policies,
which is
as
why I
long as
think
it
we leave
stays
it.
there in the budget, I can start moving forward with some of those things and come back.
Well, it's a necessity for the community to grow. Okay, we'll take a 15-minute break. Welcome back to our 2025 budget meeting 2.5 for January 6. We'll continue with Madam Treasurer on the capital budget.
So the only other project we really wanted to highlight is the Ontario CCTV grant and video surveillance in the city of Pembroke. So with video surveillance installed in the areas of Pembroke Street East and McKay within Waterfront Park, the Police Service Board, in conjunction with the Operations Department, are seeking to continue this kind of rollout into the downtown core in 2025 and have proposed 2 to 3 sites. And we have included this in the 2025 draft budget. The province has recently opened an Ontario CCTV grant program in 2025, which would require support from our local OPP detachment. And if we were successful in obtaining this grant, an additional 2 to 3 locations for cameras would be selected for a total project cost of roughly $251,500. So obviously the grant application is passed. I presume the Director of Operations went ahead with this. So he's not quite back from the break yet, but we just did want to outline that we have put forward this grant application just for your information, and we'll wait to see. I believe this did get the support from the Police Service Board, and the mayor's nodding that it did. So we will certainly keep you up to date on whether or not that grant application was successful. So the other item to note, which is different than the package, is that, again, staff did go over the capital budget that was submitted. As we previously indicated, we did cut a lot already from the budget. The Director of Operations did suggest that we could decrease the traffic controls capital project budget from 100 to 50. So we would defer the project that was listed in the package, and instead, I guess we've just had a failure at Alexander at Lake Street, so we would look at repairing that at a cost of 50. As we were discussing the operations budget for recreation, it did sound like we wanted to kind of hold back on the Coronation Park upgrade to get, I think, a better framework around using the MAT tax. So that's something that could be deferred. So we did have $80,000 worth of tax money allocated to that in 2025. So we could pull that back for now and until a better framework is implemented. Which we know will happen in 2025. However, we do note that the Kiwanis building does, as identified by our CBO, have some issues in the basement that require remediation and correction as soon as possible. So we would look to replace a portion of the Coronation Park upgrade with a project to address water filtration and electrical components in the basement of the Kiwanis building at a cost of $50,000. And we do note that the Colleen's department, Ms. Soriel, in conjunction with the procurement department, have recently received bids for a new vehicle lease of the 2 bylaw vehicles. And the costs have significantly increased over the last time we sought to lease 2 vehicles. So I believe it's roughly double. I think the monthly leasing cost is double of what we used to pay. My deputy treasurer has run the numbers and does recommend that it's more cost effective for us just to buy out and keep the 2 vehicles that we have. So for us to buy the 2 vehicles is $22,000 and change, essentially, for these 2 vehicles, which is, I think, much more cost effective than the alternative. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, so basically we had a 48-month lease for the original vehicles. And I believe, I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but it was about $23,000 that it cost the city to lease the 2 vehicles for 4 years. And now with the buyout package, because the residual value is such a good rate and price, at only $11,000 each. So if we can buy both of those vehicles out for a total of $22,000, those two vehicles are only going to cost the city in total approximately $43,000. You can't even buy a vehicle right now for that. So we've got two, and they're both 2021 with low mileage, and they're still in fantastic shape. So I certainly believe that this is the better option for the city.
So we are looking to have a zero net impact, but kind of rejig the budget to say, take out the leasing costs, add in the purchase, and then fund the difference through the parking reserve, which we would pay back over the next couple years to fund it, since that is also a reserve related to the bylaw department. Just being that we are going to save money if we take that approach with the two bylaw vehicles. So overall, with the pluses and minuses, this would be a change to the capital budget that was presented, which we haven't discussed yet, day one, day two, of $80,000 or 0.35% levy increase. So at this point, we could go over the different projects that are in the capital project listing, which is at the end of your package on pages 129 to 131. And Jennifer Belair is, prepared to discuss the different projects with support of the department heads. So I guess I'm going to turn it back to the chair to see how you want to approach presenting this. We could go over it, kind of line by line, or we could just kind of ask the floor if there's any questions related to any of the projects that are presented.
Well, I know it's up to the chair, but my suggestion would be to ask council if there's any specific item they're looking to be removed or discussed further, and if not, then we accept the capital as presented. But that's up to just a suggestion of the chair.
Okay. Councillor Keel.
Going back to the recommendations from that singular sheet, I would move that we accept those recommendations as presented by the treasurer.
Do we have a seconder? You're talking the 80,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the bottom half of this sheet, capital. Discussion? Councillor Keel?
So I was actually going to suggest that we defer the College Way at Lake Street one because, well, there's no point. The treasurer already discussed that they offered that up with the switch. With respect to Coronation Park, I think, and for those that didn't watch, I think it was I don't even know. I think it was day one. We discussed that Coronation Park would essentially fold into the, I guess, legacy project of our 200th anniversary. So I think at this point, I mean, generally speaking, you can raise good money, as Councillor Jacquinot was saying. So at this point, I think we should defer that one. I think I think I would maybe ask the mayor to move forward with putting an anniversary committee or something together, and maybe part of what they could get started on is raising some money and raising some sponsors for our legacy project and for the anniversary year. With respect to bylaw, I spoke with Ms. Soriel earlier this afternoon. I personally have never really been a fan of leasing vehicles, so I certainly am fully on board with this this switch to purchase to buy out the vehicles at the end of this lease. So I certainly support that. So I support everything in that in that grouping. The only thing I would ask is, and this isn't a question your worship needs to answer, but if we are looking and have the money available for additional CCTV cameras, I would ask that maybe he present the Police Services Board with the Albert Street and Pembroke Street West location, which we know this past summer was the location of significant vandalism and, to me, criminal activity. So I'm not asking you to answer that. I'm just wondering if I could throw that on your radar, Your Worship.
Okay, with motion on the floor to accept the $80,000 decrease in the capital budget. Any other discussion? Councillor Frenier? Okay, those in favor? Carried. Yes,
So I'll just ask my deputy treasurer, where are we at now?
Just going to, I was just playing as Councillor Keel was talking, so I'm just going to take that traffic causeway out. So we are sitting at 8.98 after we've taken out the 80,000.
okay. Yes,
A question in regards to Parks Capital, Trail Development and Trailhead. 312,000 and 348,000 on page 71. Remind me of exactly what kind of work's going to be done. I think it's signage, things like that, but if you could explain what those dollars are going to be used for, and do you think it's realistically going to be done this year?
Through the chair, so just for clarification, trail development or trailhead, sorry?
Yeah, on page 71, it says trail development, 2025 budget, 312,500. Trailhead, Algonquin Trail, and it's grant unconfirmed, 348,000.
So the trailhead, the Algonquin Trail, that's, that will be dependent on some grant funding that we've applied for. And that's essentially to develop a trailhead where the old boat used to be. So that's now removed. As far as the trail development goes, I might just ask the treasurer just to refresh our memory exactly what that is about.
So that's a closed caucus item.
Okay. Okay. Ah, foot in mouth, place foot in mouth. Okay, thank you.
you did a motion for the page 54 for the CCTV grant, and the funding's already in the budget. Can you comment on that? You need a motion for that?
So I guess that's a question for the Director of Operations. Do we still need that for the grant application? Or did we submit the grant?
No, the grant has been submitted.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the capital budget? Yes?
I know, okay, so thank you, Jordan, for answering that question. Do you think that work would get done, though? I know we're talking about building a trailhead there. You think that would realistically get done, or could we break it down over 2 years?
So through the chair, so there is a time requirement through the grant.
Oh, okay.
If I remember correctly through the grant, we would have up until, I believe it's March 31st, 2026 to spend the money. The only thing is we wouldn't be able to do the work in the wintertime. So if we are successful in the grant, it's pretty much, we got to get it done
Okay.
well before the snow flies. So,
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Keel?
Streetlights, Lake Street, year 2 of 4. What's wrong with the streetlights on Lake Street?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The streetlights on Lake Street are actually pedestrian lights. They're not the overhanging streetlights over top of the road themselves. So they don't illuminate the way the regulations require now. And they're the aggregate, it's a concrete aggregate pole. And if they get touched at all, they basically shatter. So they're very difficult to replace, and we've got 2 or 3 of them that are missing now.
Any other questions for the capital budget? Mayor Gervais?
maybe it's the hour or what, I don't know. In terms of capital buildings and facilities, there's aquatic center owner engineer sharing 50/50 with Laurentian Valley, 200,000. When it's in the 2025 budget, that's through taxation? Like not coming from other places? Because the reason why I'm asking is that in reserve and reserve funds for aquatic center, as a result of sticking many times surplus funds from various years, in the aquatic center reserve, there's like currently apparently 1.7 million, and forecasted more money to go into it. So I'm just trying to, I guess my starting place is I'm trying to figure out is when it says 2025 budget, is it through taxation to do all these projects? And if it is, why would we not finance it through the reserve?
So through the chair, to see which projects are funded through taxation, you'd have to look at the final column, the taxation column. So in this case, that project is funded, 50% through cost sharing with the Laurentian Valley, and 100,000 through the aquatic center reserve. So in this case, we just say it's reserves, but it would be the aquatic center reserve. So we wouldn't anticipate spending more than 200,000 in the 2025 budget on the owner's engineer at this time.
Park signage, 2025 Pansy Patch Park. My question's less about the budget item and more about, is that the best park to be next on the list?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it doesn't have to be Pansy Patch. It could be our waterfront. So there's a series of signs. There was Riverside Park, Pansy Patch, and the waterfront. So either or. With Pansy Patch, we have been improving some of the amenities down there. And in speaking with the Horticultural Society, I know that was one of their ones that asking if by chance we are moving forward with more signage, could we look at putting that at Pansy Patch next? Thank you.
Councillor Frenier?
Through you, the basement renovation here at City Hall. What type of renovations are we looking at? Flooring, new doors, furniture, or someone could just...
Okay, so through the chair, I can start, and then our CAO can add comments in. So we have had some wildlife infiltration. We have had somebody either who has come or will come to review the structural integrity of the basement structure. I think called it a cavern, but I believe the more appropriate term is crawl space in a certain point of the basement. So we are looking at ensuring that, the foundation of the building is structurally sound given the age of the property and given that we have had some wildlife activity in certain sections of our very old basement. As well, we have about 2 years left on our furnace. And it doesn't meet current code in terms of like the separation distance between the unit and the walls. So we are going to have to be doing some renovations down there anyways. So we're going to start with determining what's needed to fortify the foundation and look to, because we're going to have to be ripping walls and ripping floor up, looking at, as we put things back together again, what kind of office space can we create down there, because we are out of space on the main floor and second floor. So we're either up to the garret of the apartment or down in the basement meeting room. We are already down one meeting room, and it is causing operational difficulties at City Hall. So we do need better meeting space. We do need more staff space. So that would be the beginning part of the project. And we will have sort of part 2 of that in the 2026 budget once it's, we have better designs. We have worked on the foundation a little bit further, and the CAO could potentially comment further, or is that?
Yep. Don't like my vision anyways.
Frenier? Sir Keo?
What are we paving at Pansy Patch Park?
Through the chair, so we're extending the laneway. So over the past couple of years, we began to pave the driveway going down, and so we're looking to continue that. we have a big issue with the overflow of the water that comes from the operations department, and it essentially deteriorates the hill going down. So at times it makes it quite dangerous after a torrential downpour, where the water is coming down the hill and it's washing out the road.
Could you not give me one weak answer so that I can cut something here, Jordan? Like, just one thing.
Frenier?
Victoria Hall, page 66. Is that for the roof? 1.2 million retrofit, what's that for? And it says 20% regardless of grant successful. So 20% of that, so 240,000 would still be need, whether we get the grant or not. So I'm just wondering.
So we have made application to the, oh boy, what does GICV stand for? The Green Infrastructure Canadian Building Fund, potentially, for Victoria Hall. So that's based on the energy audit that we did of the building this fall.
Okay.
So we did want to try to put an application in for that funding. So if we were successful, we'd get almost $1 million to help remediate Victoria Hall. If we don't get that funding, there's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done, related to accessibility, replacing some older windows, looking at the heating and cooling of the building. So we do still, just because of the age and condition of Victoria Hall, still expect to need to do some repairs. And I think there's still some water damage.
So is
that
this for
needs
the
to be-
entire building?
So if the grant was successful, it would be basically to take it back to the, like, you know, redo from the outside in, and add insulation, add proper heating and cooling system
Okay,
to the
so-
building, change
okay.
windows. So it would
So-
be a significant renovation project if we were to get the grant. If we
So-
don't get the grant, then we're still going to need to do work in it.
Yeah, if we still own the building. So I just
Well,
want to, I don't
no,
want to.
it's the senior center portion of it.
That's what I
Yes.
asked. Okay, thank
It's the
you.
senior center portion of it.
Okay.
And I know for myself, you know, when I took it over and met with Jordan and Joe and went over to Victoria Hall, it was a bit of an embarrassment in regards to what condition that facility was, and you know, that we were the kind of almost like a slum landlord. And so we've done a lot of work over the last couple of years, and so this is just to continue the work that's needed work. But it is strictly the senior center.
Any other questions on the capital budget? So next, Madam Treasurer, do you need a motion? You need a motion to accept the capital budget? Okay. Councillor Keel, Councillor Plummer, seconded. Discussion? Motion to accept the capital budget as presented. Those in favor, carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item?
So finally, we have the public meeting scheduled for Tuesday at 6 p.m. next week. So my question to council is there anything in particular you would like me to highlight in our presentation to the public at this meeting?
Keel?
I really regret taking a bite of that square now. Have we, based on the motion that I made, I think at the beginning of this, have we posted the line-by-line budget yet? And will that, oh, okay, I couldn't find it, but that might just be me. I was just gonna say I'd like that posted for the public meeting. Other than that, I have nothing on the public meeting.
I know you're just want to confirm that you'll be doing this to let the public know where the changes are coming, where the increase is coming from and where it's allocated to. Okay, Councillor Giacono?
I'm anticipating a full house. Do we post the seating accommodation here for people so we don't have people waiting outside the door? Maybe something, or, you know, they can watch it online as well. I just think if, 70 people show up and you can only sit 25 or whatever it is, then, they're probably be put out, especially if it's a dirty night. Okay.
Councillor Keel?
I haven't been here for a full house yet. I suppose that's a good thing. Do we rotate the people so that people can ask questions and they can exit so that other people that want to ask questions can come in, or?
So I think if we had that many, which normally budget
We didn't
meetings,
my first year.
budget meetings, from my experience, aren't that popular, or at least in my former municipality.
When a pool's not involved.
When a pool's not involved, correct. So normally I would go through just an overview of where we're at, where some of the financial challenges are, touch a little bit on our asset management, I think, just because, there is some good information in some of our plans, which people in the public might not realize. And then open the floor to questions. We usually allow 3 minutes. So certainly if we, were filled, we would have to be rotating people in and out just to give everybody the chance to speak. Yeah.
Councillor Giacono.
Mr. Chair, I think the importance can't be understressed about water and sewer and how they have to be self-supportive, so that the public is aware that every year there's a particularly fairly substantial increase. It's because we're mandated by the province to be self-sufficient. Perhaps that may be emphasized, thank you.
And that public meeting is next Tuesday at 6 p.m., is that correct? Okay. Anything else, Madam Treasurer? Well, once again, we want to, on behalf of the committee, we want to thank Madam Treasurer and her staff, and we want to thank our directors that are here, and Fire Chief, and for coming. It's a long process. It's an important process. Could I entertain a motion to adjourn? Councillor Plummer, seconded Councillor Keel. Those in favor? We are adjourned.